Chapter 1073. Mo sneered. He had been following Tan Xiao for some time, and had a clear understanding of Tan Xiao's character. Although he didn't know the specific reason, it was an unchangeable fact that House Dolan's people deserved to die. Therefore, even if Angelo took out more than $1 billion, it was likely that he wouldn't be able to change his fate. Online transfer. Mo took out a computer from his interspatial ring and came to Angelo Dolan. Angelo was shocked when he saw Mo take out a computer, as if he was performing a magic trick. He carefully observed Mo for a while before he took the computer. He then looked at Tan Xiao and said aloud, "I can transfer the money to your account now, but how can you guarantee that you won't kill me?" Tan Xiao has always been a man of his word. "He promised to spare your life, so he naturally won't kill you," said Tan Xiao indifferently. "Guarantee? Words alone are no guarantee." Angelo Dolan was a bit restless inwardly, but he still gritted his teeth and transferred the billions of dollars he had deposited in the Swiss bank to the account Tan Xiao gave him. After the transfer was done, he asked, "Can I contact my father now?" "No hurry." Tan Xiao waved his hand and said, "Deal with the other things first." "Well, Art, since Angelo has transferred the money to my account, then shouldn't you also transfer the money? Don't tell me you're just teasing me. I'm a narrow-minded person, so I'll get angry." Well, Art secretly felt a bit regretful. He had offended Angelo Dolan, yet Tan Xiao didn't want to kill him. Then he would have to be careful of him in the future. "I'll transfer the money now." Well, Art took the computer and transferred $5 billion to Tan Xiao's account through more than a dozen bank accounts. Tan Xiao let out a satisfied smile. He didn't expect that he would get such a big harvest from chasing Angelo Dolan. The money they took out was nearly $7 billion. If it was converted into RMB, it would be more than 40 billion. It's better to be a bandit. It's easier to make money by robbing people. Tang Guang, send Angelo and his men to hell. I hope they can learn a lesson and never trust others easily in their next life. Tan Xiao sat back on the sofa and crossed his legs again with a smile. Yes. Mo put the laptop into his spatial ring and instantly appeared in front of Angelo. Before attacking him, two sword lights directly killed the two heavily injured old men. Only then did he control the immortal sword to stab at Angelo. Puffed. Angelo spurted out a mouthful of blood and covered his pierced heart. Disbelief flashed in his eyes as he shouted, "Why? You've already taken my money, so why do you still want to kill me?" "I just said that I won't kill you. But I never said that my men won't kill you." Tan Xiao sneered. "The people of House Dolan deserve to die. The SOE company and the other armed forces controlled by your family must all be taken out." "Why?" Angelo felt a wave of dizziness hit him. He swayed his body and roared angrily. "You may be hailed as the most outstanding genius of House Dolan, but your status is still too low." Tan Xiao grinned. "You're not qualified to know. BM. Angelo fell to the ground and twitched. Half a minute later, he breathed his last and died. Fear filled Will Art's eyes. He didn't expect that Tan Xiao would turn hostile like flipping a book. He was still smiling when he asked for money, but now he directly ordered his men to kill Angelo. If Tan Xiao ordered his men to kill him, then plop, Will Art knelt on the ground and shouted with fear on his face, "Please spare my life, Mr. Tang. There's no enmity between us. I threatened Mo and Kawako back then because of their abilities. As long as you spare me, I'm willing to pay you $5 billion after I go back. I'll definitely send it to your account within 3 days." Tan Xiao floated up and trod on the void as he came to Will Art's front step by step. He looked at the begging expression on his face and smilingly said, "You don't need to be afraid, Will Art. I said I won't kill you, so I naturally won't kill you with my own hands. Of course, I also understand the principle of not going too far. You've already given me $5 billion, so your safety is guaranteed. As for the subsequent $5 billion US, forget about it." Well, Art was now afraid that Tan Xiao didn't want the money. Upon hearing Tan Xiao's words, his heart felt like falling into an ice hole and he bitterly said, "Mr. Tang, what else do you need?" Raising his hand and stroking his chin, Tan Xiao said, "If I didn't hear it wrong, Angelo Dolan seems to have just made a deal with you. It's a diamond mine in Africa, right? That's right. Art nodded without hesitation and said, House Dolan just seized a large diamond mine in Africa not long ago. It's a mine with a huge reserve of diamonds. If all of them are mined, it will impact the world's diamond market and prices. A glint flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes as he smilingly said, House Dolan snatched that mine, so why can't we snatch it from them? You've seen my strength, and I can tell you now that these men of mine are just a few of my countless men. I can even send a stronger team of cultivators if I want to. Art stared blankly and probed. Honorable Mr. Tang, you mean we'll join hands to snatch the Dante diamond mine from House Dolan? And then we'll redistribute the profits? Tang Xiu raised his 5 fingers and lightly said, Let's split it 50-50. Art's eyes lit up and he immediately said aloud, 30-70. You get 70% of the profits, while our house Art gets 30%. What do you think? I told you 50-50. Tan Xiu smiled. If you're willing, we can plan to seize the Dante diamond mine now. I agree. Art naturally didn't mind earning too much. What he cared about now was his own safety. Take your men to my liner. Tang Xiu waved his hand and said, All right. I'll deal with the matter at hand and then go find you. All right. Art wasn't afraid of Tan Xiu playing any tricks. If Tan Xiu wanted to kill him, he wouldn't need to play any tricks and could directly kill him now. On the deck, Tang Xiu watched as Art and his 4 men disappeared from the cabin door of the liner he boarded. His eyes slowly shifted to Angelo Dolan's body, and he gently kicked his waist with his toes. Then he coldly said, Your life, the lives of the genetic warriors of the Sui Company, and the billions of dollars you transferred to me. Consider it as the interest you owe me. I'll get my capital back from your House Dolan in the future. I hope you're all alive and well now. After a while, Tan Xiu returned to the liner he took. As the liner slowly left, the 2 luxury liners exploded 5 or 6 nautical miles away. Sitting in the cabin, Art watched the scene of the 2 luxury liners exploding. His heart fiercely twitched a few times. His loss this time was too big, more than what he had earned in the last 5 years. Furthermore, even if he could go back alive this time, there would be a lot of trouble waiting for him. Sect Master. Mo Ao quickly came to Tan Xiu's side and said in a low voice, I've released the 4 models and some irrelevant people as per your order. There are 4 kayakers in total, but the chance of them reaching the shore alive is almost 0. They've encountered such an incident, so it's not a big deal for them to die, said Tan Xiu lightly. It's just that the kayakers can't row to the nearby islands. Mo Ao said, There will be a storm on the sea in 20 minutes at most. The island nearest to this sea area is also 300 to 400 nautical miles away. Plus, there are many sharks nearby, so they're dead for sure. If they die, then so be it. Tan Xiu indifferently said. They're not chaste women, nor are they good people. Their deaths can be considered as lessening the scourge in the world. Mo Ao glanced at Art and inquired, Sect Master, won't it bring us trouble if this fella spreads what we've done today? Tang Xiu shifted to Art, whose expression drastically changed, and smilingly said, Will you? Art raised his left arm and seriously said, I've already forgotten everything that happened today. I only remember that I encountered a storm on the sea, which resulted in the death of a lot of my men. My 4 men and I were able to survive because we were lucky to have met you, Mr. Tang. It was you who saved our lives. You're very smart, Mr. Art. I like dealing with smart people. Tan Xiu exclaimed in admiration. You may have offended me, but you've already settled it with money, so I hope we can be friends in the future. Even partners. That's for sure, replied Art respectfully. You're a smart man, you know how powerful I am. Tan Xiu smiled. If I wanted to destroy the 8 family, I could just casually send out a team to kill every single member of your family, and not even a chicken or dog would be spared. So, you have to know what to say and what not to say. I understand. Don't worry, replied Art respectfully. Now let's talk about the Dante diamond mine in Africa, said Tan Xiu with satisfaction. I'm sure House Dolan will send a lot of elite troops to guard the mine since it has a lot of diamond reserves. What I want to know is, do you have any good idea for us to join hands to snatch this mine? A glint flashed in Will Art's eyes and he said in a deep voice, "You don't need to do anything, Mr. Tang. Just send some people to help me, and I'll be able to get the mine quickly." Chapter 1074. Amidst the surging waves on the sea, a speedboat whizzed towards Saipan. On a passenger ship hundreds of meters away from the speedboat, Tan Xiu quietly stood on the bow deck with his hands clasped behind his back, watching the speedboat gradually disappear into the horizon. "Are you really at ease, Sect Master?" Mo's expression was a bit strange. Apparently, he knew Will Art and didn't think that the man would honestly follow his previous promise. A smile outlined on the corner of Tan Xiu's mouth as he asked, "Do you know why I let old freak Mo leave with Will Art?" "You don't want to take Demon Freak to Nine Dragons Island, do you?" asked Mo. "That's just one of the reasons," Tan Xiu said lightly. "Demon Freak isn't really one of us after all. Even if he sincerely wishes to join us in the future, it'll still take a long time for him to do so. Nine Dragons Island is our base camp and also the location of our Tang sect. We must not easily expose ourselves before we can become the most powerful force in the world." "About the other aspects, Sect Master?" asked Mo. "Demon Freak knows that we're powerful and his life is in my hands, so he naturally won't dare to easily betray us," said Tan Xiu. "Letting him leave with Will Art can on the one hand restrain him, and on the other hand, let him supervise Will Art. Demon Freak will become my subordinate, but it'll be hard for him to be loyal and devoted to me despite my strength. Besides, he wants to make himself stronger, and I can make him stronger. Only by coercion and temptation can I better control him. It seems that Demon Freak won't be able to easily escape from your palm, Sect Master." Mo suddenly understood and smilingly said, "Nothing is absolute in this world." Tan Xiu shook his head. "Don't forget that golden armored zombie in the western part of China. I also cast a restriction on him, yet he eventually chose to betray us." With a solemn expression, Mo nodded and said, "The longer an old freak lives, the more selfish he becomes. I understand what you mean, Sect Master. Since we have the entire Saipan under our control, we can put aside the matter there for the time being," said Tan Xiu with a smile. "Let's go back to Nine Dragons Island. I'll have to rush back to China after I've arranged everything there." The speedboat quickly sailed towards Saipan. At this time, on the speedboat, Will Art had a strange expression on his face. He didn't pay any attention to his four seriously injured subordinates, and just stared at Demon Freak Geezer for a long time in silence. "Have you seen enough, brat?" Demon Freak Geezer took out a cigar box and pulled out a cigar from it. He leisurely lit it up and took a few deep puffs before speaking unhurriedly. "Demon Freak Geezer, I believe we're friends and not enemies since I've become partners with Mr. Tang," said Will Art with a faint smile. Demon Freak rolled his eyes and said, "Angelo Island, but I'm really curious." Demon Freak Geezer rolled his eyes and snorted. "What's wrong with following a powerhouse?" Tan and Mo. Tan, Mo Demon Freak said. "Dong. Anyways, I don't think you're just friends." Will Art shook his head. "I heard from Angelo that there's some cooperation between you two that involves deep secrets." "Anyways, I don't think you're just friends." Will Art shook his head. "I heard from Angelo that you two have some cooperation that involves deep secrets." A cold light flashed in Demon Freak's eyes and he coldly said, "It's indeed a secret in the eyes of outsiders, but it's not a secret to me anymore. I can tell you if you want to know. A large part of the genetic warriors developed by House Dolan's secret research lab are due to my efforts. Besides, I also have the formula of the gene agent." Will Art's expression changed, and he vigilantly looked at Demon Freak Geezer. "What do you mean? Why are you telling me this?" "Demon Freak Geezer, don't forget that we have a cooperation with Mr. Tang. Mr. Tang will be very angry if you dare to act recklessly." Demon Freak Geezer glanced at him and disdainfully said, "I already knew that you're up to no good, brat. But I didn't expect you to have so many bad intentions." "That's right. I dare to tell you this because I want to kill you. It's just that you're threatening me with Tan Xiu, which makes things a bit difficult for me. Tell me, should I kill him or not?" Will Art was shaken. Will Art's heart trembled. If his four subordinates weren't injured, he might still have the confidence to protect himself. But now, his 4 subordinates were seriously injured, and he wasn't a match for Demon Freak Geezer at all. Therefore, he secretly regretted stirring up trouble just now. What should I do? Am I just going to sit and wait for death? Well, Art suddenly had an illusion that he had just escaped from the tiger's mouth, and then fell into the wolf's den. You're not loyal to Tanshio, Demon Freak Geezer? Well, Art was ready to gamble, so he asked with a vigilant face. Loyal? Demon Freak Geezer sneered. Tanshio did show his formidable strength and forced me to bow my head. But he must come up with more valuable conditions if he wants me to be loyal to him. Of course, the benefits he's giving me now are also enough to make me loyal to him. Since you're doing this for your own benefit, then how about we talk about a deal? Well, Art nodded. You're very smart. No wonder you've been recruiting troops all over the world all these years and secretly cultivating your own strength. Demon Freak Geezer gave him a thumbs up and praised. I'm really curious now, Will Art. How much power do you have behind the scenes? The power I have is so much that many people can't even imagine it, said Will Art. It's just that I lack powerhouses like you. Demon Freak Geezer sneered. That's for sure. How can a powerful powerhouse like me be willing to be loyal to others? Money has no meaning to us at all. Although power and authority can attract us, it's not as important as being strong. As for beauties, hee. This old man has lived for hundreds of years and has seen all kinds of beauties. Do you think I care about beauties? Well, Art's expression turned a bit ugly. After a long silence, he said in a deep voice, Everyone has needs as long as they're human. You can ask for what you want, and I'll get what I need. Demon Freak Geezer squinted his eyes and carefully observed Will Art. Then he gave him a thumbs up and praised, You're very ambitious. You're the most ambitious young man I've ever seen. Besides, your luck is very good, so good that even I can't help but applaud you. That's right. There's indeed something I need in this world. I'll naturally sell you the gene elixir if you can satisfy me. I want the formula of the elixir, said Will Art in a deep voice. Do you think that's possible? Sneered Demon Freak Geezer. Will Art's breathing stagnated and he finally looked a bit helpless. In fact, his heart was as clear as a mirror. Demon Freak Geezer having the formula of the elixir was tantamount to grasping a gold mine. The geezer would never sell the formula to him unless he offered a higher price than the gold mine. Tell me what you need. Herbs. I need a lot of precious herbs, said Demon Freak Geezer. If you don't know which herbs are precious, you can send someone to China to find some Chinese medicine books that have records of precious herbs. Of course, I'm sure you already know some of them, such as the Millennium Wild Ginseng, Millennium Snow Lotus, Golden Pearl, Red Lily, and many others. A horrified look appeared on Will Art's face as he asked in a deep voice, How do you know about the Golden Pearl and the Red Lily? Have you forgotten who my former companion was? Sneered Demon Freak Geezer. Will Art's pupils shrunk and shock filled his eyes. He knew who Demon Freak Geezer's former companion was. It was none other than the famous old devil of the dark world, Dao Master Poison. That geezer was highly toxic and good at using poisons. Almost no force dared to provoke him. However, what made Will Art curious was why Dao Master Poison didn't appear this time. It must be noted that Dao Master Poison and Demon Freak Geezer had always been inseparable. Wherever Demon Freak Geezer appeared, Dao Master Poison's shadow would also follow him. But where was he? Where was Dao Master Poison? Demon Freak Geezer rolled his eyes as though he had seen through Will Art's thoughts. Then he lightly said, Don't look. Dao Master Poison's life is bad and he's already dead. What? Will Art was aghast and exclaimed, You mean Dao Master Poison is dead? How is that possible? Who would be able to easily kill him with his poison skills? Demon Freak Geezer raised his brows and lightly said, I thought you were very smart, but I didn't expect you to be unable to figure out this problem. Will Art stared blankly for a moment before the horror on his face slowly disappeared. He pondered for about half a minute before he looked up and said with difficulty, You mean, the one who killed Dao Master Poison is Mr. Tang? Who else could it be but him? Demon Freak Geezer sneered. That guy, forget it. Let's not talk about that evil guy anymore. Let's talk about our deal. If you're willing to cooperate with me, Not only will I not kill you, but I'll also protect you in many cases. I agree, replied Wuxia decisively. He had no other choice at this moment. Only a dead end awaited him if he didn't agree. But if he agreed, not only would it not bring him any harm, but he would also get some benefits instead. And those benefits were the genetic agent. He was indeed an ambitious young man. His family didn't belong to any force and was incomparable to the top 3 forces in the world. However, he believed that he would have a force that could surpass those 3 super forces sooner or later through his own efforts. Demon Freak Geezer, let's talk about the details. Wuxia cautiously looked at Demon Freak Geezer. He was smart and had always been cautious. It had been many years since he lowered his guard and made a mistake, resulting in him nearly dying in this vast sea. Chapter 1075. Demon Freak Geezer looked solemn and said in a deep voice, "We can talk about the details, but you must promise me something first. Also, you must keep your promise, else I'll find you even if you hide in the most secret place in the world and assassinate you like crazy." Wuxia's breathing stagnated. He was very concerned about Demon Freak Geezer's threat, so he nodded and said, "Speak. What is it?" "Tanshio must never know about our deal," said Demon Freak Geezer. "He may be loyal to me for the time being, but that's because he can give me what I want. The deal between us must be kept a secret, and not even the slightest bit of it must be leaked." Wuxia nodded repeatedly. This was also what he wanted to say. In the contents of the transaction, medicinal ingredients were only a small matter. He had many subordinates, and it was easy for him to search for precious medicinal ingredients. However, things like gene medicines were extremely rare. He had to monopolize the gene medicines and use them to nurture a large number of genetic warriors for his own use in the future. "I accept." "Deal." As the 2 men reached an agreement, they let out satisfied laughter. 9 Dragons Island. Cheng Yannan sat on the top of the palace in boredom, basking in the warm sun and enjoying the gentle breeze. However, she felt that this kind of leisurely life could not be compared to the time when she was in the South China Sea. There were too many restrictions on 9 Dragons Island. Even if she wanted to go there and take a stroll, she would be stopped by many mysterious guards. What the hell is Tanshio doing? He hasn't even settled me down yet he directly left 9 Dragons Island. Didn't he say he would train me specifically? Cheng Yannan grabbed a few melon seeds from the plate at the side and looked at the sea in the distance. Whoosh! Her figure flickered lightning fast and instantly appeared beside Cheng Yannan. Guyin grabbed a melon seed from the plate, threw it into her mouth and smilingly said, "You're really enjoying yourself, big sis Yannan. Don't you need to cultivate?" Cheng Yannan rolled her eyes and snappily said, "What do I need to cultivate? I've been practicing the cultivation technique I got for several days, yet I can't even cultivate true essence." Guyin laughed and said, "How can quintessential essence be cultivated so easily? However, your body should have the energy produced by the ability, right? How do you control that energy and circulate it according to the cultivation route? Master once said that there are countless types of energy in the world, but as long as you can use them, they are all good energy." Cheng Yannan's eyes lit up. She immediately patted the back of her head and exclaimed, "Oh, why didn't I think of that? Baby Inin, you are really too smart. Just you wait, I'll try to cultivate now. If I succeed, I'll definitely bring you to enjoy the scenery in the sky when I'm able to fly." "Big sis Yannan, I don't need you to take me to the sky to enjoy the scenery. I can go up by myself." Guyin giggled. Cheng Yannan confidently said, "Baby Inin, just wait and see. I will definitely be able to fly to the sky earlier than you." Hee hee. Guyin let out a bell-like laughter, and as her slender arm wrapped around Cheng Yannan's waist, they instantly soared into the sky. "Aya!" A sharp scream came out of Cheng Yannan's mouth. At this moment, Cheng Yannan was so scared that a chill ran down her spine, and disbelief filled her eyes. "Fly she flew? I'm actually being carried by a 10-year-old baby to fly? Big sis Yannan, I don't think you have any hope of flying to the sky earlier than me." Guyin giggled and said, "Now let me take you to enjoy the scenery in the sky first." Cheng Yannan desperately gulped and turned her head to look at Gu Yin's bright smiling face. After a long time, She finally calmed down and bitterly said, "It seems that I'm really a frog at the bottom of a well. I didn't expect you to be so powerful. Baby Inin, you're not allowed to make fun of this big sis." Though she said so, she was actually ashamed inwardly and wanted to find a hole to burrow into. Unfortunately, they were in the air, and there was no hole to be found within 100 meters around them. "Don't worry, big sis Yin Nan." Guyin giggled and said, "I'll never make fun of you. After all, you've just started cultivating and haven't officially stepped into the cultivation path yet. You'll be able to fly freely in the sky, like me after you've cultivated for some time in the future. However, there seems to be no one else in Nine Dragons Island who can fly in the sky except for me." "But why?" Qing Yannan was puzzled. "Many of them are very powerful. Why can't they fly in the sky?" "It's Master's order," answered Guyin. Qing Yannan recalled that some areas she wanted to go to were forbidden to set foot in. She immediately understood the reason. She nodded and said, "It seems that even if Big Sis cultivates true essence and has the ability to fly in the sky in the future, I can't fly in Nine Dragons Island, nor can I take you to enjoy the scenery." Guyin giggled, and was about to speak when her expression suddenly changed. Her eyes flickered as she looked into the distance and a pleasantly surprised look appeared on her face as she exclaimed, "Great Master is back!" Saying, Guyin and Cheng Yannan appeared at the entrance of Nine Dragons Island's Grand Array in an instant. Soon after, the two of them saw a passenger ship quickly approaching and docked at the shore port. "Master!" Guyin released Cheng Yannan and instantly appeared in front of Tan Xiao. Tan Xiao let out a faint smile and reached out to touch Guyin's small head, asking with a smile, "How's your cultivation recently? Did you make another breakthrough?" Guyin shook her head and giggled. "I haven't broken through for the time being, but my cultivation has become more profound." "Master, don't be disappointed. Yin will soon break through to the nascent soul stage." Original infant stage? Cheng Yannan, who had already figured out the realms of cultivators, had a look of horror in her eyes. She had never dreamed that Guyin, who was only 10 years old, was about to break through to the nascent soul stage. Behind Tan Xiao, Mo Ao, Tang Guang, and the others looked at each other in dismay with a look of shame on their faces. They thought that their cultivation talent was good because of their previous True Qi foundation, and a lot of elixirs. It was already very amazing for them to be able to break through to the golden core stage. However, every time they heard about Gu Yin's cultivation progress, they would be greatly stimulated. No matter how hard they tried, they could never be compared with Gu Yin's cultivation speed. What a little monster! All of them secretly sighed inwardly. "Haste makes waste on the path of cultivation," Tan Xiao smilingly said. "You don't have to rush to break through to the nascent soul stage. Just stay at the golden core stage for a while to comprehend your realm, and improve your state of mind if your state of mind improves fast enough. If you can improve your state of mind fast enough, your cultivation will progress faster in the future." Guyin nodded with a half-understanding expression and said, "Inin will remember it, Master. But I've already been able to control myself. You told me that I can only cultivate for 4 hours a day at most, but I'm only cultivating for less than 4 hours now." Mo Ao and the others' mouths twitched as they looked up at the sky. They suddenly felt that comparing their cultivation speed with Gu Yin's was simply stupidity. Her cultivation speed made them feel ashamed to face the elders of Jiangdong. Tan Xiao patted Gu Yin's shoulder and shifted his eyes to Cheng Yannan. He brought Cheng Yannan to Nine Dragons Island with the intention of settling her down, making her cultivate seriously and embark on the path of cultivation as soon as possible. But because Jin Shi and the others were intercepted and returned with serious injuries, and the turbulent situation in Saipan, he hurried to Jingmen Island and didn't have the time to settle her down. "How about this place, Cheng Yannan?" asked Tan Xiao with a smile. "It's very good here." Cheng Yannan nodded and said, "But it's boring to do nothing." "You won't feel bored now that I'm back," said Tan Xiao with a faint smile. "I'll escort Cheng Yannan to the training base and let her train and cultivate with the children. Also, get some cultivation resources for her. Once she breaks through to the Qi refining stage, tell her to take the medicinal pills." "Understood." Mo Ao complied and shifted his gaze to Cheng Yannan. Cheng Yannan was a bit excited after hearing Tan Xiu's arrangement. She had been looking forward to the training for a long time, and now that she finally got the arrangement, she couldn't wait to rush over there. In addition, Gu Yin's previous reminder had also made her feel enlightened, so she was eager to try it out. Tan Xiu shifted to Tang Guang and the others and said, "Kawako, stay here. Everyone else is dismissed." Quickly, Tang Guang and the others left, leaving only Tan Xiu and Kawako Yamamoto, who wore a respectful expression. Tan Xiu strode toward the palace and lightly said, "I didn't expect that your cultivation speed would be so fast to break through to the golden core stage so early, but you've never cultivated in the sect. You haven't been cultivating in the sect, and have been exploring on your own. So in the next few days, I will teach you the knowledge of cultivation, and help you absorb all the medicinal power that has accumulated in your body." "I'll follow your arrangement, sect master," said Kawako respectfully. Tan Xiu let out a faint smile and led Kawako to the palace. After having a simple meal and changing his clothes, he took her to the beach again. "Get on the boat." Tan Xiu jumped on a speedboat and called out after it started. Kawako didn't hesitate and jumped on the speedboat. Tan Xiu then took her outside the island's protective array. A few minutes later, Tan Xiu anchored the speedboat on the sea. "What are you doing, sect master?" Kawako looked at Tan Xiu with a puzzled expression and asked. "Jump into the deep sea and sink with all your might," said Tan Xiu lightly. "Remember, you must reach the limit that you can withstand at least." After saying that, energy fluctuations appeared around Tan Xiu as he quickly jumped off the speedboat and sank into the sea. Kawako didn't know about Tan Xiu's training method for her, but she still gritted her teeth and jumped into the sea. At the same time, she released her true essence to push the seawater half an inch away to ensure that her clothes wouldn't get wet. 50 meters. 100 meters. 200 meters. When the depth reached 200 meters, Tan Xiu stopped and calmly waited. It didn't take long before Kawako appeared in front of him. "Can you continue?" Tan Xiu transmitted his voice to her. Chapter 1076. The true essence released by Kawako had been forced back into her body by the tremendous pressure of the seawater. Yet she couldn't speak because seawater would pour into her mouth once she opened her mouth. With no other choice, she nodded with difficulty while withstanding the tremendous pressure. "Since you can still nod, it proves that you haven't reached your limit yet," Tan Xiu transmitted his voice to her. "Keep going down and stop only when you reach the critical point where you can't bear it anymore." Kawako, who was already very uncomfortable at the moment, felt a chill inside when she heard Tan Xiu's voice transmission. She didn't know how Tan Xiu would train her, but she had a faint premonition that she was about to face an inhuman torture. Sure enough, when Kawako sank to 260 meters, her graceful body began to tremble violently. Blue veins bulged on her forehead and her retinas were faintly bloodshot. "I can't stand it anymore." Kawako finally stopped. Although the surging true essence in her body prevented her from being crushed into a meat patty by the seawater pressure, she had lost the strength to even speak. In fact, there was even true essence in her eyes, working hard to protect her eyes from the pressure of the seawater. Tan Xiu, who was closely following Kawako, immediately transmitted his voice to her upon seeing her stop. "If you think this is the critical point you can bear, then stop here and circulate the true essence in your body with all your might. Try to extract the spiritual qi from the seawater to replenish your true essence as much as possible." Kawako didn't answer, but she followed Tan Xiu's instructions and frantically circulated the true essence in her body, causing it to rush to the meridians in her limbs and bones. What made her helpless was that she could clearly feel the consumption speed of her true essence. But when she tried to sense the spiritual qi contained in the seawater and absorb it, she found that the absorption speed was far slower than the consumption speed. 10 minutes. "I can only persist for 10 minutes at most if I cultivate at this depth. Once the time passes, I'm afraid that the true essence in my body will be completely consumed. Once the true essence in my body is consumed, only death awaits me if I can't leave the seabed in time." These thoughts flashed through Kawako's mind, but she still tried her best to persist. She believed that Tan Xiu would not harm her, because if Tan Xiu wanted to harm her, he did not need to use such a method. As long as Tanshio wanted to, she would probably die without a burial place. Time. In the blink of an eye, 6 minutes had passed. Kawako's body trembled even more fiercely. She realized that she had overestimated herself. The higher the stage, the faster the consumption of true essence. Moreover, she could clearly feel that there were countless needles moving in her body, pricking her and causing her unbearable pain. Spiritual Qi. I need spiritual Qi. Kawako Yamamoto had a firm and resolute character. She had received training from her family and the North Star One Blade School since she was a child. And the cruel training had polished her steel-like willpower. Persevere. Persevere. Just as Kawako felt dizzy from the pressure, and her consciousness was about to collapse, a warm feeling suddenly gushed out from every part of her body that was aching. It was as though a mother's warm hand was soothing the pain in her body. At this moment, countless warm currents converged in her dantian. In just a few seconds, it was like the transformation from hell to heaven. The heart-wrenching and lung-splitting pain disappeared, replaced by a comfortable feeling instead. Such a transformation made her ecstatic. Then as time continued to elapse, the pain once again invaded every part of her body. As the pain grew more intense, her body finally reached its limit and had a huge breakthrough. Traces of warm currents emerged once again as the medicinal efficacy hidden in every part of her body was constantly forced out, absorbed, refined, and transformed into true essence. Once, twice, 3 times in just 15 minutes, Kawako had broken through her limits 3 times and absorbed 2/3 of the medicinal efficacy hidden in her body. Almost there. Tanshio quietly floated in front of Kawako. Looking at the painful expression on her face once again, he instantly reached out to grab her arm and quickly brought her to the surface. Hua! Water splashed everywhere as Tanshio broke through the water surface with Kawako. After returning to the speedboat, he directly put her down, took out a medicinal pill from his interspatial ring, and stuffed it into her mouth. Don't think about anything. Empty your mind and cultivate according to the cultivation technique. Kawako sat cross-legged on the ground. She didn't even open her eyes from the beginning to the end. As she continued cultivating, she found that she could sense the heaven and earth spiritual qi more clearly. As her mind gradually emptied, she found that she could even detect some energy outside of the heaven and earth spiritual qi. Like a silk being peeled from a cocoon, she quickly plundered it. Kawako's body emitted a suction force that continuously absorbed the drifting heaven and earth spiritual qi into her body. For hours later, an intense surprise flashed in Kawako Yamamoto's eyes the moment she opened them. She floated up and then knelt on one knee, placing her right fist on her left chest and respectfully saluted. Thank you for your nurturing, Sect Master. I can feel that I've made great progress after just one cultivation session. I've almost reached the mid-stage of Golden Core. I'm sure I'll be able to break through to the late stage of Golden Core if I keep cultivating like this. Very good. Tang Xiu let out a faint smile and said, Your performance is better than I expected. It seems that your willpower is very strong. If he wanted to go further on the path of cultivation, he would need to have this kind of determination. Today's underwater training will end here. Next, you will need to undergo another type of training. What kind of cultivation? Asked Kawako hurriedly. Although being trained by Tanshio was very painful, she was also pleasantly surprised by the benefits. Hence, she was willing to undergo such a cruel training. Tanshio raised his arm and moved lightning fast. After sealing several important acupoints on Kawako's body, he indifferently smiled and said, True essence is abundant, but if your physique is weak, your body won't be able to bear the true essence and will eventually explode and die. You're different from Ao and the rest. They have undergone countless training sessions to strengthen their physique, but you haven't. That's why I found that your physique is too weak. What you need to do next is the weight-bearing training, which is even more cruel. It will polish your willpower, destroy your nerves, and temper your body. Prepare yourself mentally, else you'll be tortured and driven crazy by the pain of the training. Kawako's expression changed and she looked at Tanshio with a bit of fear. She knew that the following training sessions would be very cruel, but she didn't expect it to be this cruel. It seemed that the physical training was not just a physical pain. Master. In the distant sky, Guin turned into a streak of light and dashed toward the speedboat. Tanxiu slightly furrowed his brows and looked at the sprinting Guin. He was silent for a few seconds and then asked after she appeared in front of him. "Why did you come out? Is there something urgent?" "It's fortunate that you didn't go far, master," said Guin. "Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to find you easily. It's big sis Yannan. She's looking for you." "Why is she looking for me?" asked Tanxiu. "Didn't I tell Ao to take her to the training base?" "You'll know when you get there, master." Guin giggled. "Big sis Yannan, she's angry. She wants to leave Nine Dragons Island and go to the South China Sea to plant herbs and raise fierce beasts." With his keen mind, Tanxiu immediately realized that the root of the problem was the moment he heard Gu Yin's words. Inadvertently, a strange smile appeared on his handsome face as he nodded and said, "Let's go back and have a look first since she's in a bad mood. This girl needs to be polished well, if she wants to become someone great." "Master, Sister Yannan is actually very powerful," said Guin with a smile. Tanxiu smiled and said, "Don't put in a good word for her, and don't always look at her. If you have time, you should learn more and help your mother. She's old, and her cultivation talent is not good enough. If she wants to become strong in the future, without special care, it will be difficult for her to get the chance to leave with us." Gu Yin's expression slightly changed and she immediately replied respectfully, "I understand, master." Immediately after, Tanxiu returned to Nine Dragons Island with Guin and Kawako Yamamoto. Before the speedboat reached the shore, Tanxiu was already standing on the speedboat and saw Cheng Yannan standing angrily on the shore, as well as the helpless Mo Ao. "Tanxiu, did you do it on purpose?" Cheng Yannan said angrily when Tanxiu jumped onto the shore. With a cold expression, Tanxiu said in a deep voice, "Did you forget what I told you? You're not allowed to call my name in the future." Cheng Yannan's breathing stagnated. She suddenly recalled Tanxiu's identity and status, and her angry expression immediately weakened a lot. But she still said with dissatisfaction, "I know you're the sect master now, but I want to ask you something. Why did you throw me to that group of child soldiers? How old are they? 4 years old? 5 years old? 7 or 8 years old? Did you think that I haven't stepped into the ranks of cultivation, so you deliberately mess with me? Cheng Yannan, I once accepted you into the Tang sect because we were classmates, but it doesn't mean I can tolerate your ignorance," said Tanxiu indifferently. "You think they're young? You think I'm deliberately messing with you?" Cheng Yannan's expression turned a bit ugly, but she still gritted her teeth and said, "Yeah, you made me train with a group of children. What kind of training can I get?" "You should have been out of the training ground for a long time, haven't you?" asked Tanxiu. Cheng Yannan didn't understand Tanxiu's meaning, but she still nodded and said, "Yeah, I've been waiting for more than 4 hours." Tanxiu sneered. "Cheng Yannan, age has never been a problem for cultivators. Only the strong have the qualifications to speak and disdain others. Do you think it's shameful for you to train with a group of children as an adult? Isn't it?" Cheng Yannan asked back like a hoodlum. Chapter 1077. Tanxiu looked at Cheng Yannan with a bit of disappointment in his eyes. He didn't expect that Cheng Yannan, who had already become an ability user, would still view the problem with such a narrow vision. The children on the training ground were indeed very young, but they possessed formidable strength. Any one of them could easily kill a martial arts grandmaster in seconds. "Come with me." After saying that, Tanxiu led Cheng Yannan, Guin, Kawako Yamamoto, Mo Ao, and the others to the training ground. Cheng Yannan still had a lot of resentment in her heart. She followed behind Tanxiu and kept glaring at Tanxiu's back. She was somewhat disappointed in Tanxiu because she felt that she wasn't valued at all. Kawako Yamamoto was a Japanese, yet she was trained by Tanxiu alone. She used to be Tanxiu's old classmate, yet he threw her to a group of child soldiers. Was she supposed to play house with those children? Soon after, Tanxiu appeared on the training ground with a few people and watched some children who were trapped in sandbags. They didn't use any true essence energy and ran with all their might while carrying heavy weights to temper their physical strength. He also saw some children sitting cross-legged on stone blocks and cultivating silently. "Assemble," Tan Xiu trod on the void and walked tens of meters high in the air as he shouted at nearly 1,000 children on the training ground. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. Figures flashed lightning fast and quickly moved to their positions. In just a few seconds, nearly 1,000 children lined up in neat formations. After arriving with Tan Xiu, Cheng Yannan looked disdainful. She felt that Tan Xiu personally brought her here to make her lose face in front of these children. However, when she saw those lightning-fast figures, her heartbeat quickened. She couldn't help but cry out, "How is this possible?" Tan Xiu indifferently looked down at Cheng Yannan. After nearly 1,000 children saluted him, he said in a deep voice, "Cheng Yannan, since you look down on them, I'll give you a good lesson today." With that said, he looked up at nearly 1,000 children and shouted in a deep voice, "All of you will be talents of the sect in the future. You will be powerhouses who will follow me to call the wind and summon the rain. Although you are very young now, you know the cruelty of this world. The weak could only be stepped on by others. The weak could only live a miserable and pitiful life. Today, I have decided to conduct an assessment on all of you. I hope that you can let me see the results of your hard work." Yes. Nearly 1,000 children answered in unison. Tan Xiu nodded with satisfaction. He pointed to Cheng Yannan and said, "She's a new member who joined us. She's a bit arrogant because I had a good friendship with her. She even looked down on you when she came here and saw that she would train with you. She thought that you're just a bunch of baby soldiers who haven't grown up yet. Do you want her to look down on you?" Nope. Nearly 1,000 children's eyes fell on Cheng Yannan at the same time. Each and every one of them looked angry and wanted to teach Cheng Yannan a lesson. Tan Xiu's mouth twitched and said, "I'll give you a chance, Cheng Yannan. There are a total of 960 baby soldiers in your eyes. You can pick one of them at will and fight him. If you have the energy, I'll agree to you even if you want to fight all 960 people one by one. Also, I'll apologize to you for my previous attitude toward you even if you only defeat one of them. I'll also arrange for someone else to give you special training. I'll even invest a lot of cultivation resources in you in the future, so that your cultivation speed can advance by leaps and bounds and make you become a powerhouse." Cheng Yannan had just witnessed the speed of these children, and her heart was faintly beating like a drum. Upon hearing Tan Xiu's words, the anger that had just dissipated a lot returned to her chest. She glared at Tan Xiu and said, "You want me to bully these children? You clearly know that I've awakened my special ability, and even 8 or 10 ordinary adult men are not my match." 8 or 10 adult men. Tan Xiu sneered. "That's really amazing. Well then pick anyone you like. I'd like to see how a powerful ability user like you is going to defeat these children." "You." Cheng Yannan was exasperated. She turned to look at the nearly 1,000 children and loudly said, "Come out and pick some of you. I want to see how capable you are after Tan Xiu's training." Whoosh. A thin and small figure quickly appeared in front of Cheng Yannan. His speed was so fast that Cheng Yannan didn't even have the time to react. She only saw a blur in front of her, and the person was already in front of her. "I'm Tangjin. Please enlighten me." Tangjin, who was only 7 or 8 years old, acted like a little adult as he cupped his fists and spoke in a formal manner. Cheng Yannan was both angry and amused at the same time. Although she was angry at Tan Xiu for fooling her, she really couldn't bear to hit this child in front of her. After hesitating for a while, she helplessly shook her head and said, "You're Tangjin, right? Don't make trouble, kid. I just said those words out of anger. Don't worry, I won't hit you. Please enlighten me," Tangjin said with a serious face. Ugh. Cheng Yannan didn't expect that the child in front of her would be so stubborn. She had already said those words, yet he still wanted to challenge her. How could she fight him? It would be shameful if she won, because she was only fighting a 7 or 8-year-old child. If she lost, it was impossible. How could she lose to a child? However, when she saw the solemn Tangjin in front of her, she shook her head helplessly and said, "Brat, you're the one who wants to get beaten up. Then I'll teach you a lesson and let you know how to be a child and not know the immensity of heaven and earth." After saying that, she moved her feet, and with a speed that was faster than an ordinary person's maximum running speed, she appeared in front of Tangjin in an instant. She even swung her fist at this moment. Although the strength she used was very weak, she was confident that her punch would land on Tang Jin's shoulder and cause him to sit on the ground and cry. Whoosh! An afterimage flashed and Cheng Yennan's confident punch directly missed. How is this possible? Cheng Yennan's complexion turned sluggish. Just as she was about to turn her head to look for Tang Jin, a huge force came from her back and punched her 7 to 8 meters away. She fell heavily on the ground and rolled a few meters away before coming to a stop. Cough, cough. Cheng Yannan could feel the burning pain on her back and the turbulence inside her body. She quickly crawled up from the ground and looked at Tang Jin in disbelief. Tang Jin looked at Tan Xiao and said with a bit of disappointment, "She's too weak, boss. It's not challenging to fight her at all. Can I give up?" The smile on Tan Xiao's face turned thicker, and he shot a teasing look at Cheng Yannan. Cheng Yannan's complexion instantly turned red, and the anger on her beautiful face turned more intense. She shouted, "Tang Jin, how dare you look down on me? Just wait and see how I'll deal with you." She took 2 heavy breaths before pouncing towards Tang Jin. This time, she decided that she couldn't lower her guard. So when she raised her fist and was about to strike Tang Jin, she suddenly felt her vision blur. Instantly, she felt an intense pain in her chest, causing her to suffocate, and her body flew backwards. Cheng Yannan's body fell to the ground. Although the fall was not very painful, it set off monstrous waves in her heart. She was not stupid and was very smart. At this moment, she finally realized that Tang Jin's speed was too fast. Even if she didn't show any mercy, she was still no match for him. However, he was clearly a 7 or 8-year-old kid. Even if he had undergone training, it was impossible for him to have such a strong combat power, right? Tan Xiao waved to Tang Jin, motioning him to return to the team. Then he looked at Cheng Yannan and smilingly said, "How was it? How could a child soldier in your eyes defeat you so easily?" "That's right. Did you hear what Tang Jin just said? He's saying that you're too weak, and you're not challenging at all." Cheng Yannan was so angry that she wanted to go crazy. She never dreamed that a 7 or 8-year-old kid could be so strong. She retracted her fierce gaze from Tang Jin and loudly said, "Tang, Sect Master, you must have deliberately let him come out. You already knew that he's very powerful, so you let him dampen my spirit, didn't you?" Tan Xiao disdainfully said, "I just told you that these nearly 1,000 children can be your opponents if you want. They can accompany you to practice." "No need." Cheng Yannan turned to look at the children. She was sure that Tan Xiao deliberately said that, hinting that the most powerful among them would attack her. "You come out." Cheng Yannan pointed to the front of the team, a boy who was also 7 or 8 years old. The boy asked helplessly, "Can I refuse? I just saw your match with Tang Jin. You're too weak. It's really boring to fight with you." Cheng Yannan was instantly enraged. She had never expected that she would be despised by the kid in front of her just because she had just lost. That's right. He despised her. She was a dignified adult in her 20s and an ability user. Yet she was despised by a 7 or 8-year-old child. This was really not giving her any face. "Brat, I'll beat you until you cry later," Cheng Yannan angrily said. The boy sighed and saluted, saying, "Since you want to fight me, then please enlighten me." "Enlighten you, my ass." Cheng Yannan roared inwardly and dashed toward the boy. Her speed had reached the limit, and she didn't even save any strength in her fist as she bombarded the boy with all her might. BM. The boy's expression was calm as he also directly bombarded with his fist, which collided with Cheng Yannan's. However, his body remained motionless, while Cheng Yannan let out a blood-curdling scream, and was sent flying backward again. This time, her fall was more miserable, especially since the left side of her face fell first and her eye was bruised. Chapter 1078. The boy didn't seize the opportunity to attack. Instead, he trotted to Cheng Yannan, stretched out his hand and said with concern, Are you okay? I didn't dare to use my full strength just now. That's because I didn't even use half of my strength. You're too weak. I didn't do it on purpose." Puff! Cheng Yannan was so angry that she spurted out a mouthful of blood. At this moment, she was dumbfounded. She could still find an excuse if the little guy who took the initiative to come out just now defeated her, thinking that it was Tan Xiao who played dirty tricks in the dark. But this little guy was picked by her, so how could he be so strong? That punch just now was like hitting a steel plate. The recoil made her feel a sharp pain between her thumb and forefinger, and her entire arm was numb. You. The boy hurriedly grabbed Cheng Yannan's other arm and lightly pulled her up. Then he worriedly said, "Please don't let anything happen to you. We're not enemies. We're on the same side. I don't want to hurt you." Cheng Yannan's lips trembled. She looked up at Tan Xiao and asked bitterly, "What level has his cultivation reached?" "Tell her," said Tan Xiao with a faint smile. "I've just broken through to the late stage of qi cultivating stage. I'm afraid I'll have to wait for a while to become a foundation establishment stage expert. Boss, I'll definitely cultivate hard in the future and strive to break through as soon as possible." Tan Xiao nodded with a smile and waved at him. He then looked at Cheng Yannan and asked with a smile, "What's wrong? Can your body withstand being continuously hit and sent flying? If you can, then stand up again and choose your new opponent." "That's right, you didn't use your special ability in the last 2 matches. So try using your special ability in the next match. Let's see if you're more powerful than these child soldiers." Cheng Yannan took a deep breath and looked at a 5-year-old girl. The little girl was very thin and weak, as if she was malnourished. She hooked her finger at the little girl and said, "Little guy, it's not that this big sis wants to bully you, but this big sis just lost face, so I want to win once. Attack me with all your might. I'll be careful." The little girl smiled, revealing 2 small canine teeth. With a bit of innocence, she said, "Big sister, boss said that no matter what kind of enemy we face, as long as we fight, we must go all out. I've only been in the team for half a year, and I'm the weakest among my companions." Cheng Yannan frowned and asked, "Little guy, what do you mean?" The little girl giggled and said, "Big sister, if you can beat me, it will prove that you are really powerful. But if you can't even beat me, you don't have to challenge anyone else because you can't beat anyone." Cheng Yannan's face darkened, and she almost couldn't restrain herself from punching the little girl. She could now see that none of these seemingly harmless little fellows were good people. "Let's fight." Cheng Yannan couldn't be bothered to speak anymore. She needed to defeat one of them and regain some of her dignity. The little girl bowed slightly and said, "Please enlighten me." In order to regain more dignity, Cheng Yannan said directly, "You make the first move." "All right." The little girl hesitated for a moment, and then looked at the left side of Cheng Yannan's face. Then, she stared at the right side of Cheng Yannan's face and said seriously, "Big sister, I think the bruises on your face are not symmetrical, and it will ruin your beautiful appearance. I'll help you. I'll make you look good again." Her voice faded away. A pink little fist had already appeared in front of Cheng Yannan. Just as her pupils contracted and it was too late for her to block or dodge, the pink little fist directly bombarded her right eye socket. Just as she was dizzy from the punch and retreated backward, the little girl followed her like a shadow and punched the right side of her face a dozen more times. Only then did she retreat with a bit of satisfaction. Ugh! When the little girl stood still and saw Cheng Yannan lying on the ground, she suddenly revealed a dull look when she saw Cheng Yannan loosening the right side of her face. Tan Xiao looked at Cheng Yannan with a strange expression, and then shifted his gaze to the little girl. Suddenly he burst into laughter and said, "There's no harm in letting you stay here to train, Cheng Yannan. Even a little girl is qualified to be your teacher. Besides, you should know the truth that those who reach the pinnacle are the teachers, no matter what kind of industry it is. So stay here and train well. I'll send someone to add some ingredients for you." Ha ha ha. At this moment, Mo and Kawako's faces were also flushed and they quickly ran out of the training ground. They wanted to laugh, but they remembered that they would have to work with Cheng Yannan in the future, so they could only hold it in. Only when they rushed out of the training ground did they burst into laughter. Cheng Yannan crawled up from the ground with difficulty. Even though her face was burning with pain, she felt that her self-esteem had suffered a bigger blow. She lost. It was a crushing defeat. She originally didn't want to bully the little girl, but she was defeated 3 times in 3 matches and was beaten up by the 3 little girls. No, 3 times. Now she finally realized how narrow her thinking was before. She used to look down on these children, but now she realized that she was too ignorant. Perhaps any one of these children could defeat him, and beat him up very miserably. Tanxiu. Sect Master. Cheng Yannan looked a bit apologetic. She shot a deep look at the direction where Tanxiu disappeared and then shouted, "Mo, come back." After a short while, after laughing, Mo returned to the training ground and looked at the badly battered Cheng Yannan. He tried his best to restrain his emotions and said, "What's wrong? Don't you think it's shameful to train with them now?" "I was wrong. I misunderstood, Sect Master," said Cheng Yannan bitterly. "Mo, I want to ask you to train me well and make me as strong as these children." Mo gave her a thumbs up and praised, "It's great to know one's mistake and correct it. Since you have this intention, then let's officially start. But the first thing I want to tell you is that the next training will be very tiring and painful. You'll experience it later that every minute and every second is very hard to endure. What I want to ask is, can you persist?" "I can." Cheng Yannan looked at the nearly 1,000 children. Mo nodded and shouted in a deep voice, "Everyone is dismissed. Cheng Yannan, go to the equipment room to get your equipment, and report to me here in 5 minutes. "Where's the equipment room?" asked Cheng Yannan. Mo stared blankly for a moment, and then said aloud, "Tang Jin, take her to the equipment room and get a set of each equipment. You're responsible for training her from today onward according to the training you received when you entered the school. Remember, don't delay your cultivation." "Understood." Tang Jin darted back not far away. Cheng Yannan's mouth twitched a few times. She felt ashamed to be trained by a 7 to 8-year-old child. However, she felt much better after recalling Tang Jin's strength. On the 9th deserted island, Tanxiu began his special training for Kawako after he brought her here. His training method was very cruel. He sealed several important acupoints in Kawako's body, so that she could no longer use her true essence. Furthermore, he personally cut 10 stones from a stone mountain. The lightest stone weighed 300 catties and the biggest one weighed 2 tons. He made Kawako carry the boulders on the 9th deserted island to do all kinds of training. However, more than a dozen Tang sect peripheral members stationed on the 9th deserted island saw Kawako gritting her teeth to endure the training. Aside from the usual patrol, they also joined the training. Even though their cultivation was not as good as Kawako's, their physiques were not weak. Training, torture, growth. Just like Kawako, these people's strength kept improving under Tanxiu's training. 2 Tang sect peripheral disciples even broke through during the training and became experts at the foundation establishment stage. Because of that, they were accepted into Tang sect and became official disciples of the sect. 7 days later, Kawako successfully absorbed all the medicinal efficacy accumulated in her body. After breaking through her body's limit again and again, she successfully became a late-stage golden core expert. During these 7 days, aside from supervising her cultivation, Tanxiu didn't slack off in his own cultivation. He had made great progress during these 7 days, but he still didn't activate his star essence divine ability. "Don't worry." Tanxiu comforted himself. After returning to Nine Dragons Island, he spent 2 days to deal with some matters. He then arranged for Tom Reggie and Kawako to leave, while he took Tang 28 and rushed to China. Magic City. Tang Yunda was sitting in the study room of Blue Star Villa Complex, quietly reading a book in his hand. In front of him were 2 middle-aged men in black suits with respectful expressions. They were as motionless as stone statues. Ring, ring, ring. The urgent ringtone of a mobile phone interrupted Tang Yunda's train of thought. He put down the book and picked up the phone. His expression immediately moved when he saw the caller ID. He picked up the call and asked, "How is it? Is there any news?" "The news has been confirmed. He's in country Y." A deep and low voice came from the phone. A cold light flashed in Tang Yunda's eyes and he said in a deep voice, "Send me his specific location and keep an eye on him." "Understood." There was a reply from the other side of the phone before the call was hung up. Tang Yunda took a deep breath and looked at the 2 middle-aged men. Then he said in a deep voice, "Head to country Y immediately. Remember, Xiaowu will cooperate with you." Keep an eye on that bastard. Also, find the local underground forces and pay them to do it. Understood. The two middle-aged men replied and strode out of the study room. Outside the villa's courtyard, just as Tan Xiao took out the door card from his interspatial ring, he found that the courtyard's door was open from the inside and two strong men came out. Who are you? Tan Xiao was sure that he had never seen these two men before, but it was very unusual for them to appear in his house. Young Master Tang. The two men had seen Tan Xiao's photo and naturally recognized Tan Xiao's identity, so they respectfully greeted him. Chapter 1079. Tan Xiao slightly furrowed his brows, but as he instantly released his spiritual sense, his furrowed brows smoothened out and he said with a faint smile, "You came with my father? Did something happen?" Young Master Tang, our cargo ship was hijacked at sea. We investigated and found that the other party is not a pirate, but a foreign force targeting us. Angor Company, said one of the big men respectfully. Angor Company? Tan Xiao vaguely felt that the name sounded familiar, but he couldn't remember where he heard it. He waved his hand to signal the two men to leave and entered the villa alone. He greeted the housekeeper who was cleaning inside, and then went to the study room on the second floor. Bang! Tan Xiao knocked on the door and then pushed it open. He looked at his father, Tang Yunda, who was frowning and didn't hear his knock at all. He was still deep in thought. Tan Xiao immediately smiled and said, "What are you thinking about, Dad? Why are you so engrossed in your thoughts?" Tang Yunda recovered from his contemplation and saw his son, Tan Xiao, in front of him. He immediately looked happy and asked, "How come you're back? Didn't you say you should still be on Nine Dragons Island?" "I've arranged everything there, so it's natural for me to come back and handle some things," Tan Xiao said with a smile. "But it seems something happened on your side." Tang Yunda helplessly said, "Some people are destined to be enemies for the rest of their lives. I just didn't expect them to be like rabid dogs. Once their target appears, even if they don't want to be enemies with them for the time being, they will still pounce and bite them. This time, although we didn't suffer great losses, we lost a few lives." "Angor Company?" asked Tan Xiao curiously. "How did you know?" Tang Yunda stared blankly for a moment, and then asked in surprise. "I just met your men outside the courtyard," said Tan Xiao. Tang Yunda understood and forced a smile. "That's right. They're from Angor Company, a company that entirely relies on selling arms for profit. To be more precise, it should be House Dolan. The real helmsman of Angor Company is Amor Dolan, one of the top 3 in House Dolan." Suddenly, Tang Xiao realized why he felt that the name Angor Company sounded familiar. It turned out that he also found some records about it when he investigated House Dolan. However, there was very little information about this company, and the person at the helm of this company was also very low-key. Tang Xiao slightly furrowed his brows and asked, "Did House Dolan get the news that you're still alive?" "It should be right." Tang Yunda nodded. House Dolan suffered a great loss in what happened back then, especially after we killed the most favored young master of House Dolan. They regarded us as a thorn in their side and couldn't wait to get rid of us. The corner of Tan Xiao's mouth rose as he asked, "Dad, who's the most favored young master of House Dolan now?" Tang Yunda stared blankly for a moment before he forced a smile and said, "I wouldn't have been able to answer these questions if you asked me a few days ago. However, due to the recent hijacking of the cargo ship and the murder of my men, I personally contacted the head of the Darkwind organization in China and bought detailed information from him about House Dolan. The most favored and outstanding disciple of House Dolan now is called Angelo Dolan." Tan Xiao didn't ask about the details of House Dolan. Instead, he revealed a cold expression and said, "Angelo Dolan is dead, along with dozens of genetic warriors of the Sui company around him. Consider it as some interest for what you've done all these years. Dad, I want to know about the Darkwind organization in China." A look of disbelief appeared on Tang Yunda's face as he exclaimed, "What did you just say? Angelo Dolan is dead? How is that possible?" "Angelo Dolan appeared in Saipan with a lot of experts and seriously injured several of my men," Tan Xiao said. "Then I took control of a very powerful person, and with his help, I successfully found Angelo's location and killed him. From then on, there was no Angelo Dolan in House Dolan. Tang Yunda shot a deep look at his son Tan Xiao. He raised his thumbs up and praised. Your father killed the most favored disciple of House Dolan in the past. And now my son killed the most favored disciple. I didn't lie in bed for 20 years in vain. Anyways, why are you asking about the Darkwind organization, Xiao? The Darkwind organization is like a malignant tumor that hides in every corner of the world, said Tan Xiao calmly. It once sold my information to others, so I got rid of that branch. Further, I also eliminated the Darkwind's intelligence organization in Saipan. Don't mess around again, son. Tang Yunda was aghast. The Darkwind organization may be just an intelligence organization, but it's rumored that it's more powerful than the 3 major organizations in the world. No one has ever been able to fully understand the hidden forces it has. You don't want to be monitored by others in the future, do you, Dad, do you? Tan Xiao sneered. This. Tang Yunda hesitated for a moment and then helplessly said, there's no other way. The Darkwind has existed for a long time. It has a history of hundreds of years, and its members rarely show their faces in public. They are like rats hiding in the dark corners and constantly developing their intelligence network. Even the intelligence network of all the countries in the world can't be compared to the Darkwind. It's because the Darkwind's intelligence network is too powerful that we need to get rid of them and replace them. Tan Xiao sneered. I already have a lot of arrangements, Dad, so you can rest assured. Let me tell you something. Even if we have a falling out with the Darkwind now, I'm sure I can completely eliminate this organization from the world. Tang Yunda had heard about his son, Tan Xiao, establishing the Tang sect. He also heard that his son led a large number of men to kill demonic beasts in the Himalayas, and made outstanding military exploits. He knew that his son was very powerful, but his son's words set off monstrous waves in his heart. Destroying the Darkwind organization? If his son could destroy the entire Darkwind organization, wouldn't his strength reach the top in the world? I'm now sending people to establish an intelligence network, Dad, said Tang Xiao again. I'll increase the investment in the intelligence organization next. I'll be able to compile a huge intelligence network all over the world in 3 years at most. Not only will House Dolan be removed within these 3 years, but I'll also continue to dismantle the Darkwind and make them disappear from this world. How sure are you about this, son? Asked Tang Yunda hurriedly. 100% sure, answered Tan Xiao with all seriousness. Tang Yunda abruptly got up from the sofa with an ecstatic look on his face and exclaimed, You're worthy to be my son. You're much more promising than this old man. Xiao, I'll take you to a place. There are some things I need to tell you and some people I need to hand over to you. There's still something I don't know about you, Dad? Asked Tan Xiao with a puzzled expression. Though I've been lying in bed for so many years, who doesn't have some secrets? Tang Yunda grinned. Before I was seriously injured and fell into a coma, I actually began to prepare for revenge. Though I've been staying in Star City, it's partly because I was disheartened and partly because of your mother. But, how can a man not take revenge? A glint flashed in Tan Xiao's eyes as he nodded and said, All right, I'll go with you. Shanghai Serene Peace District. As the black off-road vehicle slowly drove into a factory gate, Tan Xiao, who was sitting inside, wore a thoughtful look. There were more than a dozen security guards at the factory gate. Though they looked ordinary and didn't emit any powerful aura, their every move had the shadow of a soldier. Tan Xiao was also keenly aware that there were many people lurking in the surrounding hidden corners. As he released his spiritual sense, he found 40 to 50 experts hiding in the dark within a radius of several hundred meters. Dad, this place is quite heavily guarded. Tan Xiao turned his head to look at the tranquil Tang Yunda and slowly spoke. Of course it's heavily guarded. This place is my biggest secret and also my biggest trump card. Tang Yunda laughed. I know some of the Tang family's arrangements in the past, but even the old master doesn't know what I've arranged here. Back in Star City, I didn't expect that House Dolan could find this place, so I only felt that it was a bit dangerous. But I was still careless. Else, if I had brought a lot of men to fight with House Dolan's people lurking in China, the outcome would have been really hard to say. Tan Xiao's expression moved and he silently nodded. Ha! When the black off-road vehicle stopped in the square outside a warehouse, Tanxio saw 4 men and women coming out of the warehouse. One of them was a young woman he had seen before. Brother Tang. Uncle Tang. After Enai Peng stepped forward and gave Tang Yunda a big hug, Enai Jia, who was behind him, respectfully called out. Peng Gang, this is my first time seeing little Jia since I woke up, right? Tang Yunda smiled and said, I never thought that the little girl from back then has grown up so much. She looks very much like you. She's very beautiful. If you think she's beautiful, why don't you make her your Tang family's daughter-in-law, Brother Tang? Enai Peng Gang laughed and turned to Tanxio saying, I've heard of nephew Tanxio's name. Tang Yunda couldn't help laughing. He turned to Tanxio and said, This is Enai Peng Gang, a brother who has gone through fire and water with me countless times in the past. This is his daughter, Enai Jia. Xiao Peng Gang is one of us. He's someone we can entrust our lives to. Hello Uncle Enai, Sister Enai Jia, said Tanxio respectfully. Tanxio, I just received a call from your father, so I got to know some things. Enai Peng Gang smiled. I originally thought that we would continue to stay dormant for a long time, but I didn't expect you to be so powerful. You're able to make your father tell you the situation here in such a short time. Let's go. I'll take you to see some people who will become your most loyal men in the future. Chapter 1080. Tanxio nodded without a word. He had sent someone to investigate Enai Jia's background, so he naturally knew that Enai Peng Gang was a businessman. However, he didn't expect that he would have such a deep relationship with his father. As they walked toward the warehouse, Tang Yunda said, Son, Peng Gang's older brother was once a brother who went through fire and water with me. His older brother followed me and lost his life on the battlefield, and the enemy was House Dolan. It's just that Peng Gang retired early due to some special reasons. Tanxio suddenly understood. He finally understood why his father's arrangement was still being carried out even after more than 20 years had passed. Killing intent flashed in Enai Peng Gang's eyes as he shook his head and said, I was raised by my older brother. We brothers depended on each other for survival. I didn't expect him to leave so early. Therefore, House Dolan must be destroyed. All the clansmen of House Dolan must die. Tanxio halted his pace and looked at Enai Peng Gang's back. Suddenly, his figure appeared in front of him in an instant. He took out 4 silver needles from his interspatial ring and instantly pierced them into 4 acupoints on Enai Peng Gang's body. At the same time, he grabbed a sharp dagger and tore a bloody wound on Enai Peng Gang's lung acupoint lightning fast. Tanxio. Upon seeing Tanxio's action, Tang Yunda and Enai Jia's complexion drastically changed, and they involuntarily exclaimed. The faces of the 3 men and women in the surroundings turned a bit unsightly. They looked at each other in dismay and quickly retreated a few steps back. Tanxio ignored his father, Tang Yunda, and Enai Jia. Looking at Enai Peng Gang's countenance, Tanxio said in a deep voice, I've noticed that there's something wrong with you since the first time I saw you. The killing intent is too heavy and has affected your heart and lungs. Although I can't see it now, you'll be affected and eroded by the murderous aura, resentment, and other negative emotions in 2 or 3 years at most if this trend continues to develop. Your brain nerves will be damaged and your heart and lungs will fail, and then you'll die in pain. Sit cross-legged and do as I say. Don't worry. You're my father's sworn brother, so you're my respected elder. I won't hurt you. Enai Peng Gang's expression quickly returned to normal. He believed in Tang Yunda because he believed that Tang Yunda's hatred for House Dolan was no less than his. Therefore, he also believed in Tanxio because Tanxio was Tang Yunda's son. Sitting cross-legged, Enai Peng Gang silently closed his eyes. Tanxio said in a deep voice, You should be practicing Qigong, and the meridians you've opened belong to the cold attribute, so there's something wrong with your cultivation technique. If it was a woman cultivating it, there wouldn't be a problem. But for a young and vigorous man like you to cultivate this kind of cultivation method, it would be a big problem. Focus, calm your qi, and control the qi in your body to flow towards your lung acupoint. I have already opened an opening there. You have to expel all the cold yin qi in your body. Enai Peng Gang suddenly opened his eyes and stared at Tanxio, saying, Nephew, Once I expel all the cold yin qi in my body, my cultivation will be crippled. How can I become a cripple before I take my revenge? Please believe me, uncle and I. Tan Xiu shook his head. I won't turn you into a cripple, and I'll give you great benefits instead. Believe? Benefits? Enai Penggong's complexion changed a few times. In just 2 or 3 seconds, he closed his eyes again and followed the route Tan Xiu told him. He directed the true qi and cold yin qi in his body to the lung acupoint. Puff, blood splashed, and the temperature around Enai Penggang dropped by several degrees in just half a minute. Fortunately, Tan Xiu wasn't affected, but Tang Yunda and Enai Jia, who were very close to Enai Penggang, looked horrified and retreated a few steps back. Just a moment ago, when they felt the change in temperature, a strong negative emotion unexpectedly spawned in their hearts. They even had the urge to kill someone. Although the person they wanted to kill was not Enai Penggang, the emotion still horrified them. Time fleeted by. Half an hour quickly passed by. A feeling of weakness hit Enai Penggong's heart. The true qi he had painstakingly cultivated, and the cold yin qi in his body were all expelled from his body. Tan Xiu, who had been paying attention to Enai Penggong's condition, immediately pulled out the 4 silver needles on Enai Penggong's body. He took out a medicinal ointment and smeared it on the wound on his lung acupoint. He then took out a medicinal pill and stuffed it into Enai Penggong's mouth, saying, "Focus your mind and qi. Feel the circulation route of the qi in your body. Cultivate according to this route later." After saying that, Tan Xiu grabbed Enai Penggong's pulse and injected a wisp of primal chaos force into his body. Soon, the medicinal efficacy contained in the medicinal pill was absorbed by his primal chaos force. Whoosh! Opening new meridians and dredging the blocked acupoints in the veins was a very pleasant process for a cultivator. Even if Enai Penggang had suffered a lot of pain, he still decided not to suffer even 1/10 of the pain he was experiencing now. However, he wanted to know what benefits Tan Xiu mentioned, so he gritted his teeth and tried his best to persevere. He tried his best not to faint because of the pain. This time, after more than 3 hours, Enai Penggong's brain roared and the pain in his body disappeared like a tide. It was replaced by a warm flow that flowed all over his body, giving rise to a strong sense of comfort. Comfortable. It was like soaking in warm water. The strong sense of comfort almost made him moan. Tan Xiu's voice rang in Enai Penggong's ear. Remember this true essence circulation route. You must circulate it at least 49 times a day and maintain it for at least 3 months. 3 months later, you'll be able to smoothly step into the ranks of cultivators and become a qi refining stage cultivator. Cultivator? Qi refining stage? Although Enai Penggang didn't know what the qi refining stage meant, he knew the existence of cultivators. In his eyes, cultivators were like immortals who possessed mysterious and unfathomable abilities, and were powerful enough to make countless people worship them. Enai Jia looked at the pain on her father's face and finally felt relieved. She looked at Tan Xiu and asked, How's my father?" "He's very good." Tan Xiu lightly smiled and said, "It's a blessing in disguise for him. After so many years of being eroded by the cold yin qi, his body's condition was originally very bad. But after expelling the cold yin qi and cultivating according to the cultivation technique I taught him, he'll be able to cultivate true essence. Thus, because his body is constantly being eroded and tempered, and through the nourishment of true essence, he is actually in a much better condition than an ordinary person." "I don't understand." Enai Jia shook her head. "It doesn't matter if you don't understand." Tan Xiu lightly smiled and said, "You just need to know that your father's body no longer has any hidden dangers. He'll even be better than before when he wakes up." Enai Jia's lips squirmed a few times. She didn't quite believe it. She had clearly seen Tan Xiu's actions just now. Those 4 long silver needles pierced her father's body, and he even used a dagger to injure him. How could it be good for him? Night fell. As the cold air blew past her, Enai Jia, who was wearing thin clothes, slightly trembled and her complexion turned a bit pale. Tan Xiu, who was sitting not far from her, secretly shook his head. He took off his coat and handed it to her, saying, "Wear more clothes." Enai Jia took the coat and nodded silently. Tan Xiu looked at Enai Penggang and found that his body moved. He immediately smiled and said, If my guess is correct, Uncle and I should wake up soon. Sure enough. Not long after Tan Xiu's voice faded away, Enai Pungang woke up from his cultivation. When his vision recovered, he saw Tang Yunda, Tan Xiu, his daughter Enai Jia, and the others sitting in front of him. He directly jumped up from the ground and moved his arms to feel the power in his body. The way he looked at Tan Xiu suddenly changed. This power is very powerful, Enai Pungang said with a bit of excitement. It's an essence amassing pill, of course, it will bring you great benefits. Tan Xiu lightly smiled. Do you remember what I said before? According to this true essence circulation route, you'll need to circulate it for at least 49 times a day for at least 3 months. Enai Pungang firmly nodded. He then hesitated and asked, You also said that I can become a cultivator if I persist for 3 months, Tan Xiu? That's right. The cultivation technique I taught you is an immortal cultivation technique. Tan Xiu nodded. There's still a lot of content, so I'll teach you the entire set of cultivation techniques later. As long as you cultivate well, it won't be a problem for you to become an immortal and seek the Tao in the future. Become an immortal and seek the Tao? The corner of Enai Pungang's mouth twitched a few times. He felt that Tan Xiu's words were a bit exaggerated. It seems you're luckier than me, Pungang. Tang Yunda laughed aloud. Xiu has taught me a cultivation technique for a long time, but I haven't been able to cultivate true essence until now. I've eaten a lot of good stuff, but it's useless. Enai Pungang's eyes instantly lit up. He rubbed his hands and looked at Tan Xiu asking, About that, nephew. Do you still have the medicinal pills you just mentioned? Your uncle is getting old, so I'm afraid it won't be easy for me to cultivate in the future. My cultivation speed can be a bit faster with the help of medicinal pills. Tan Xiu took out a jade bottle from his interspatial ring and handed it to Enai Pungang with a smile, saying, There are 10 essence amassing pills inside, but don't take them for the next 3 months. Cultivation is like building a building. If the foundation is not solid, it's very likely that you'll suffer from qi deviation in the future. Uncle and I, you should know the saying that haste makes waste. If you don't take any medicinal pills and persist in cultivating for 3 months, you'll be able to easily crush martial arts grandmasters. Martial arts grandmasters? Easily crush them? Enai Pungang blinked and his heartbeat sped up several times. He then asked, You're not lying to me, are you? Chapter 1081. Tang Xiu couldn't help laughing and looked at Enai Pungang, whose face was full of expectation. He took out a cigarette and handed it to Enai Pungang and his father, lighting it for them. He then lit one for himself and slowly took 2 puffs. Then he smilingly said, How could I possibly lie to you? Your current strength should be far beyond your previous strength. You can give it a try if you don't believe me. Enai Pungang hesitated for a moment and immediately looked at the 2 middle-aged men standing nearby. He waved at them and said, Both of you are powerful experts. I could beat one of you in the past, but it was very difficult to deal with both of you at the same time. But now, I want to try fighting with both of you. The 2 middle-aged men exchanged glances. One of them then let out a strange smile and said, Are you sure, boss? Enai Pungang strode forward and hooked his finger, saying, Come on. Go all out. Understood. The 2 men exchanged glances and immediately pounced toward Enai Pungang. They were fast and powerful, and their fists were already in front of Enai Pungang amidst the whistling wind. Enai Pungang slightly furrowed his brows. He moved his feet and instantly dodged their attacks and shouted in a deep voice, Haven't you eaten? I told you to go all out to attack me. The 2 middle-aged men looked confused. They had obviously gone all out. Furthermore, they had just joined hands to attack and had practiced many times in actual combat, so their coordination was absolutely flawless. Yet, how could Enai Pungang so easily dodge their attacks? Look at his speed, one of the middle-aged men said in a low voice. The other man narrowed his eyes and said, He may be stronger than before, but we're not to be trifled with. Keep attacking. Got it. Both of them were battle-hardened experts with rich combat experience. With their joint attacks, Enai Pungang was constantly forced to retreat. However, they failed to injure Enai Pungang and didn't even gain the upper hand. Instead, they were punched and kicked several times when Inai Pungang counterattacked. Stop! Inai Pungang halted his attacks and stood still. He frowned and shouted, "What's going on with you two? I already told you to go all out. Why are your attacks so soft today? Why is your speed so slow? If I wanted to, I could beat the two of you up in half a minute at most." Both of them widened their eyes when they saw Inai Pungang's furious expression. All of a sudden, as though they realized something, they turned their heads to look at Tan Xiao in unison. Their eyes were filled with passion as they looked at Tan Xiao. After half a day, Tan Xiao was able to make his boss, Inai Pungang, become so powerful in such a short period of time. His strength was at least 2 times stronger than before. His means were really heaven-defying. The two of them also wanted to become stronger and reach the next level in a short period of time. Tan Xiao looked at their expressions and found it funny inwardly. He walked to Inai Pungang and smilingly said, "It's not that they didn't go all out, Uncle Inai. It's just that you've become stronger. You might not realize it now, but once you truly break through to the Qi refinement stage, you will understand the strength of cultivators. At that time, your strength will be more than 10 times stronger than it is now." Inai Pungang stared blankly at Tan Xiao. When his eyes shifted to his two men, he asked in a deep voice, "Are you sure you've gone all out?" "I'm sure. I'm 100% sure. We've gone all out." The two men were secretly disappointed to find that Tan Xiao didn't pay attention to them. But when they heard Inai Pungang's question, they immediately answered him seriously. Inai Pungang fell into silence. After a long while, he raised his hand to touch his chin and said, "I'll follow you from now on, Tan Xiao." "Please don't say that, Uncle Inai." Tan Xiao hurriedly waved his hand and said, "My dad is watching from the side. Do you want him to teach me a lesson?" A smile appeared on the corner of Tang Yunda's mouth. He was extremely satisfied with his son's performance today. It was true that he and Inai Pungang were sworn brothers of life and death, and they also had a common enemy. But he couldn't guarantee with 100% certainty that Inai Pungang wouldn't have any disloyalty after so many years. But at this time, regardless of whether Inai Pungang had any disloyalty or not, he was convinced by his son. "Pungang, let Xiao take care of the security company's people. I believe he can train a large number of elite soldiers under his leadership. When the time comes, we can take our revenge," said Tang Yunda with a smile. "You were the one who established the security company in the beginning, Brother Tang," said Inai Pungang without hesitation. "Although I've been adding new blood all these years and increased the number of our security company to 80 people, all of them are loyal and devoted brothers to us. Tan Xiao has the ability, so I'm at ease handing them over to him." Inside the warehouse, a total of 80 members of the Yunding Security Company were all undergoing physical training. At this moment, they were already sweating profusely, and many of them looked tired, but none of them stopped training. With a swift and fierce kick, the hanging sandbag exploded. The burly man, who was as majestic as an ox, had a shiny upper body. His streamlined muscles were covered with hideous scars. It was obvious that he had experienced countless life and death battles. There was also a scar on his face that extended from the right eyebrow to the left side of his chin. It was as though a scorpion was crawling on it, making it look ferocious and horrifying. Yang Hu changed to a sandbag that can withstand more kicks. The burly man grabbed a towel and wiped the sweat on his face and neck. Then he wrung the sweat off the towel and raised his head to shout, "Captain, we don't have a sandbag that can withstand more kicks. You've already kicked 6 sandbags this month. You've used up all our reserves." A tall and burly young man in a black training suit rolled his eyes and replied helplessly. The burly man furrowed his brows and angrily said, "Are all the sandbag manufacturers trash? Or are those bastards in the munitions factory embezzling the money for the materials? These damn sandbags aren't even enough for me to use for 3 to 5 days. They're fucking garbage." The young man directly turned his face to the side. He was the clearest about his captain's toughness. Even if the power of his punch didn't reach 250 pounds, it was probably not much worse. His full-strength kick had already exceeded 600 pounds half a year ago. Coupled with his tall and burly build, he was nearly 1. 9 meters tall and could definitely be regarded as a humanoid monster. Clap, clap, clap. Tan Xiao followed his father, Tang Yunda, and Enai Pungang into the warehouse's entrance. His eyes glanced at the burly man as he applauded and smilingly said, "Good power. It's already very rare for an ordinary person to have such great power. The quality of the sandbags produced by the factories nowadays is indeed not good. If you need sandbags, I'll send someone to send some to you later. You won't be able to blow them up even if you have a 500-pound fist." "Boss." The burly man nodded to Enai Pungang and indifferently glanced at Tan Xiao. But when his eyes landed on Tang Yunda, his pupils suddenly shrunk and disbelief filled his eyes. At this moment, the towel in his hand fell to the ground and his body slightly trembled a few times. Then he crazily dashed toward Tang Yunda and shouted, "Are you, Captain?" Tang Yunda's eyes were a bit moist. He didn't tell Enai Pungang to tell his former brothers that he was still alive. It was because he wanted to hand them over to his son one day, so that they could work for him. "Zaibiao." Tang Yunda's lips squirmed a few times. He looked at the burly man Li Zaibiao, who had a look of disbelief on his face and slowly raised his arm. Clap. The two men clasped their hands together and hugged each other, slapping each other's back hard. Their excited emotions couldn't be calmed down for a long time. "Captain." "Instructor." "Brother Tang." More than a dozen drenched middle-aged men quickly dashed to the front of Tang Yunda. Without exception, all of them were extremely shocked and pleasantly surprised. Tang Yunda released Li Zaibiao and kept hugging the middle-aged men. In the men's room, there were a lot of words that didn't need to be said. It was the most sincere attitude to know that he was safe and sound. The more than 60 stalwart men in the surroundings looked confused. They didn't know Tang Yunda, but they felt that he was somewhat familiar. "Who is he?" asked a big man with blue veins throbbing on his forehead while holding a dumbbell. "I don't know. A bit familiar." Captain and the others seemed to have lost their composure. "Is that man one of our own?" "What did Captain just call him?" "Captain?" As the last man's voice faded away, the dozens of stalwart men in the surroundings were all stunned. Half a minute later, disbelief was written all over their faces as they looked at Tang Yunda, with eyes full of fanaticism. "It's Captain Tang Yunda. It's him. Yes, it's definitely him. My idol." They were all veterans who had retired from the army and had experienced countless life and death battles. But in their hearts, there was a unified idol. Tang Yunda, the captain of the special forces from more than 20 years ago. It was him. He was like a legend in the army, a powerful god of war. Tang Yunda looked at his old brothers in front of him. His lips squirmed a few times and his voice turned a bit hoarse. Then he nodded with satisfaction and said, "Good, good, good. All of you are still alive. I didn't expect that I would be able to see my brothers again after I woke up from my sleep." "Where have you been all these years, Captain?" asked Li Zaibiao. "What sleep?" Enai Pungang explained on behalf of Tang Yunda. "Brothers, Big Brother Tang was plotted against by a powerful enemy in the past. He has been in a vegetative state for 20 years. Now that he has woken up, he has returned to us with the hatred from that time." Vegetative state? 20 years? Everyone was shocked. They never dreamed that Tang Yunda would be able to wake up in such a situation. Furthermore, he seemed to be no different from a normal person. Chapter 1082. Tan Xiao calmly watched his father reunite with his old brothers with a touch of warmth in his eyes. The true nature of a man was revealed, making him realize that he was far inferior compared to his father. This also caused him to lower his guard against his brother in his heart. However, no matter how good his brothers were, they were not as strong as him. Back when he was plotted against in the immortal world, he always thought that those people were his close friends and true brothers. But it turned out that it was just wishful thinking on his part. Suddenly, Tan Xiao's expression shifted, and he quietly retreated outside the warehouse. When his figure appeared in the square outside, he glanced at the distance and lightly asked, "Why are you here?" "Grandmaster." Tang An's figure didn't appear, but her faint voice was transmitted to Tan Xiao's ears. "I just got the news that a group of mysterious experts has been spotted in Yungang City. They have gathered at Heidi's private port, and have completely occupied it. Ordinary people can't even approach it. Also, some people with special identities in several cities in the country are rushing there. According to the intel we got, nearly 100 people have gathered there. The number of people is still increasing. Who's the owner of the port? Asked Tan Xiao with a frown. It's Wen Feng, said Tang An. He's a real estate developer in Yungang, and also the richest man in the city. Our men have secretly investigated him, and found that there's a problem with his identity. What problem? Asked Tan Xiao. Wen Feng has been an orphan since he was a child and lived in an orphanage before he was 12 years old, said Tang An later. A fire broke out in the orphanage and many of its staff and children were burned to death, and many people went missing. Wen Feng was one of the missing people. 6 years later, when he was 18 years old, he suddenly appeared in Yungang City and entered one middle school in the city. He took the college entrance test the following year and was admitted to Northern University. But he gave up the opportunity and started his own business in Yungang City. It took Wen Feng 21 years to establish the Rivers and Mountains Group and became the richest man in Yungang City with a wealth of 10 billion yuan. Under the Rivers and Mountains Group, not only does it have real estate development, but it also does foreign trade. It has a private port and a dozen large cargo ships. Tan Xiao asked indifferently. What I want to know is Wen Feng's identity. Well, most of the funds come from abroad, said Tang An. Their funds flow into China is very secretive, so much so that the government may not be able to find it even if they deliberately investigate it. But our people can check the capital flow records of some countries abroad. A strange look flashed in Tan Xiao's eyes. What exactly did Wen Feng experience in the 6 years he was missing? If he had already become a member of a foreign force, then he must have his own motives and schemes for sneaking back into the country. Didn't you find out his true identity? And those who rushed over? No. Their whereabouts are erratic and they are very vigilant, said Tang An. Our intel operatives are very careful. Yet they were almost detected several times. Furthermore, several of the people we entrusted have been discovered in order to figure out the flow of Wen Feng's funds abroad. If it weren't for our people not showing up, I'm afraid the other party would have found us. Tan Xiao squinted his eyes as countless thoughts churned inside his mind. After a long while of silence, he slowly said, Let's go to Liangong City tonight and find out who those people are and which organization Wen Feng belongs to. Understood. After saying that, Tang An didn't move again. Tan Xiao pondered for a moment before he turned around and walked toward the warehouse. He saw that the stalwart men had gone to train, whereas Li Zibiao was chatting with his father and Anai Pengang. Where did you go, Xiao? Tang Yunda saw Tan Xiao coming and immediately waved and asked. I just got some special news, so I left for a while, said Tan Xiao with a smile. Dad, I'm glad you can see your former brothers. Yeah. Tang Yunda smiled with satisfaction. I'm already very satisfied to see my former brothers. Xiao, let me introduce you. This is Li Zibiao, a military genius who was once a rare talent in the army. Tan Xiao looked at Li Zibiao and nodded with a smile. Nice to meet you, Uncle Li. Li Zibiao carefully observed Tan Xiao and shook his head. Your physique is too weak, and your scholarly aura is too thick. If you want to be a real warrior, you'll need formidable force. But like father, like son. Your father was the god of war in our eyes back then, so presumably his son won't be bad either. He should be very powerful in other aspects, no? A strange look appeared in Tan Xiao's eyes, whereas Tang Yunda and Inai Pengang rolled their eyes at the same time, secretly finding it funny that Li Zibiao judged people by their appearance. Li Zibiao didn't notice their expressions and continued. Also, he's very interested in what you just said about the sandbags. If you really have good quality sandbags that can withstand my power, I'll take as many as you have. Tan Xiao looked at Tang Yunda with an inquiring expression. Tang Yunda squinted his eyes and exchanged glances with Anai Pengang. He then waved at Tan Xiao and smilingly said, Since I'm ready to hand them over to you, you can play with them however you want. But don't go too far. Medical fees are very expensive. A smile appeared on Tan Xiao's face. He looked at the dazed Li Zibiao and smilingly said, Do you think my physique is too weak, Uncle Li? Do you think I have a scholarly aura and can't be compared with a muscular man? Li Zibiao frowned and hesitated for a moment before he said, "Your Uncle Li always says what I want to say, Tan Xiao, and your father knows it. I don't mean to ridicule you, but I really think you're too weak. You need to exercise well in the future. You can come to us later if you want. We can teach you some self-defense moves." Tan Xiao walked toward the iron rack at the side. He took off his coat and put it on the rack, and then said aloud, "Attention, everyone. Gather here. Your Captain Li thinks I'm too weak, so he wants to teach me some self-defense moves. However, even though I'm very young, I'm not convinced. That's why I'm preparing to challenge Senior Captain Li. If he can defeat me, I'll definitely be like a small soldier in the future. I'll report here every day and learn self-defense moves from everyone." His loud voice spread throughout the warehouse in an instant. The strong men, who had returned to their training, stopped one by one and gathered here with strange expressions. Challenge. The target of challenge is Captain Li Zibiao? The other 79 elites of the security company looked at Tan Xiao, as though they were looking at a fool. They all knew that Captain Li Zibiao's strength was definitely the strongest among them. There was once a martial arts grandmaster expert, and they watched helplessly as he was beaten by their captain. How come the son of our idol doesn't inherit our idol's wisdom? He actually wants to challenge Captain? Isn't he just looking for a beating? Alas, I thought a tiger father wouldn't beget a dog son. I didn't expect that young man to be so reckless. He didn't inquire about our captain's strength and just took off his coat to challenge him. With our captain's character, he'll never show mercy for Brother Tang. That young man is out of luck. One must know one's limits, else one will die very quickly. Challenging Captain? He might as well find a Tyrannosaurus Rex and challenge him. Young people nowadays. People always like to be impulsive. Does he think that Captain will give him some face in the competition for his father's sake? He's simply stupid. Forget it. Don't watch this show. There's no suspense. With his keen hearing, Tan Xiao could hear the discussion of the strong men from the security company. The corner of his mouth slightly curled up, and the smile on his face turned a bit thicker. Li Zibiao quietly looked at Tan Xiao. His heart was full of disappointment. He had a faint feeling that Captain Tang Yunda and Inai Pinggang wanted to hand over all his brothers to this young man in front of him. If he had the ability, then he would definitely obey. Even if he didn't have the strength, he could still have the intelligence. After all, they could charge and break through the enemy lines. Yet this young man was arrogant enough to challenge him. It was simply a stupid behavior. Li Zibiao felt that not only did Tan Xiao not have much strength, but he also didn't have a good brain. If he and his brothers were to be handed over to this brat in front of him, they would definitely be out of luck. Are you sure? Li Zibiao looked at the smiling Tan Xiao, and his tone was a bit unfriendly. Tan Xiao was keenly aware of Li Zibiao's attitude, but he didn't care about it at all. He lightly smiled and said, "Uncle Li, a man of his word is as good as his horse's whip. Since I've already said it, it means I'm certain. I heard your conversation when I just came in. You can kick a sandbag, so I'm afraid your strength is very terrifying. But don't judge me through the crack of the door. We'll know whether I have the strength or not after we compete." Li Zibiao shook his head and said, "If it were someone else, I would absolutely agree without hesitation, even if the other party is a martial arts grandmaster. But you're the captain's son, so I can't hurt you even if I don't look at the monk's face. Brat, remember that the captain is the most respectable person in my heart." The smile on Tan Xiao's face disappeared. He slightly furrowed his brows and said, "You're the captain of the security team, so you should know that you can't underestimate any opponent. Else, it will cause the entire security team to suffer huge losses, even if you only encounter a love rival once." Li Zibiao ignored Tan Xiao's words. He understood this truth, but Tan Xiao looked fair and clean and didn't look like a martial arts practitioner at all, so he really didn't have the slightest interest in fighting him. Li Zibiao turned to the young man not far away and waved his hand, saying, "Young Hu, play with him. Don't be too heavy." Chapter 1083. Yang Hu, who had a burly appearance and a somewhat ferocious-looking face, immediately cried out with a sullen face, "Captain, how can you give me this kind of strenuous and unrewarding task? If I accidentally hurt young Master Tang, won't that be a sin? Don't grumble. Just go easy on him, said Li Zibiao discontentedly. I don't think there's a problem with your control. Yang Hu rolled his eyes and grunted. Fists and feet have no eyes. You and my idol can't blame me if I hurt young Master Tang. Tang Yunda, who was at a loss whether he had to cry or laugh, waved his hand and said aloud, You're Yang Hu, right? Don't worry. I won't frown even if you beat this brat into a vegetative state, as long as you have the ability. But of course it'll be shameful if you lose. Don't worry, idol. Yang Hu grinned. I might not dare to boast if it were someone else, but your young master. Cough cough. I still have some strength. Tan Xiu's brows furrowed deeper. He looked at Yang Hu and shook his arm. He immediately hooked his finger and said, Cut the crap, lest you make a fool of yourself later. Come on, I'll let you have 3 moves. Yang Hu stared blankly and the smile on his face immediately disappeared. He looked at Tan Xiu's indifferent expression and immediately sneered. Young Master Tang, your father is my idol, but it doesn't mean I'll let you have your way. Just let me have 3 moves and give it your all. I hope you won't be like a soft-footed shrimp that I can defeat with just a few punches and kicks. Tan Xiu shook his head. His figure flashed lightning fast and appeared in front of Yang Hu in a flash. The latter simply couldn't react and punched his cheek. Though he used very little strength, Yang Hu's burly body still flew upside down. BM, BM, BM. Tan Xiu followed him like a shadow and whipped his legs on Yang Hu's body. Along with a few screams, Yang Hu rolled 5 meters away like a gourd and fell at the feet of several stalwart men. Cough cough, the series of blows almost made Yang Hu suffocate. Finally, he coughed violently and raised his head with difficulty, revealing an incredulous expression. Silence. No, to be precise, it was dead silence. Apart from Tang Yunda, everyone in the warehouse was dumbfounded as they looked at Tan Xiu. Some of them even raised their arms and rubbed their eyes, wondering if they were hallucinating. Tan Xiu shook his head and said, Remember to figure out your opponent's strength before you show off. Only by knowing your enemy and yourself can you emerge victorious in every battle. To be honest, in my eyes, you're just like an ant. Even if I use less than 1% of my strength, you're still not my match. Li Zibiao sobered up from the shock. When he heard Tan Xiu's words, he immediately showed an angry look. He just thought that Tan Xiu was a young man without the strength to truss a chicken. He didn't expect that in the blink of an eye, Tan Xiu would make a gorgeous transformation and beat down the soldiers he trained and turned into an expert. How did you do it? Li Zibiao asked with a gloomy face. At this moment, the 70 to 80 strong men around him showed great curiosity and quickly discussed among themselves. Yeah. How did he do it? I thought my eyes were playing tricks on me just now. Yang Hu may not be the strongest among us, and more than half of us can beat him, but it's not a problem for him to beat dozens of hooligans. How did he get beaten down so easily? His speed is so fast that I can't even see his moves. I'm afraid I'd only be abused if I were him. God damn it, I misjudged him. I didn't expect him to be a hidden expert. However, Yang Hu also underestimated his enemy. He wouldn't have been beaten so badly if he was more cautious. I thought there wouldn't be a good show to watch, but I didn't expect it to end like this. That brat is not bad. He's barely qualified to enter my eyes. Tan Xiu ignored the discussions around him and looked at Li Zibiao, who was staring at him. He then lightly smiled and said, Uncle Li, did you forget what I just said? It's taboo to look at people through the crack of the door. No matter who you meet in the future, don't take them lightly, even if it's a child, because those children may not be someone you can deal with. Li Zibiao took a deep breath and turned to look at a burly man nearby. He then said in a deep voice, Alu, you come and exchange a few moves with him. Remember, if you lose, don't let me have dinner tonight. The burly man who was called over immediately showed a bitter expression upon hearing it. He scratched his head and said, Can you change the punishment method, Captain? I may have the confidence to beat young Master Tang, but there's always a chance. Just like this Yang Hu brat. If I lose, won't I have to starve? Cut the crap. Hurry up and fight me. Li Zibiao angrily shouted. Show your best state. The burly man, Alu, shrugged his shoulders helplessly. He looked up at Tan Xiao and revealed a simple and honest smile, saying, "Young Master Tang, it seems I can't be lenient with you for the sake of my dinner. You gotta be smart. If I beat you too badly, I'm afraid I won't have dinner tomorrow." Tan Xiao crooked his finger and lightly smiled. "Don't worry. You'll definitely have dinner tomorrow. As for today, I'm really sorry." A cold light flashed in Alu's eyes. He was like a ferocious tiger coming out of its cage as he instantly pounced toward Tan Xiao. His speed was very fast, and his whip kick was even faster. It whistled through the air and arrived in front of Tan Xiao in the blink of an eye. Bam! Tan Xiao seemed to raise his arm slowly, but it was actually extremely fast and easily parried the swift and fierce kick. His figure instantly appeared in front of Alu and gently swung his arm to directly hit Alu's waist. Hiss! A gasp came out of Alu's mouth, and a horrified look could be seen in his eyes. The moment his figure landed on the ground, he staggered back a few steps and rubbed the spot where his waist was hit. He glared at Tan Xiao and said, "You can actually block my kick in the air? You're amazing. Young Master Tang's strength is really beyond my expectation. I hope you can prepare yourself for the next move." His toes kicked the ground. The moment Alu loosened his grip on his waist, his body shot out like a cannonball and dashed to the front of Tan Xiao faster than before. The sound of his punches was very loud, and the attack route was also very special. The seemingly curved trajectory of his punches was fast enough to attack the tip of Tan Xiao's nose. Pa! Tan Xiao moved lightning fast and grabbed Alu's wrist in an instant. Alu's expression changed. He felt as though his wrist was clamped by an iron clamp. Under the huge impact of his arm, he couldn't move forward even half a step. Just as he was about to use his other fist to attack Tan Xiao, and conveniently use his leg to affect Tan Xiao, he suddenly felt a cramping pain in his abdomen. Bam! Alu's body was sent flying backward. His buttocks were in the front while his feet and head were in the back. He flew backward for about 4 to 5 meters before his buttocks fell on the ground. "You're too weak." Tan Xiao shook his head and said, "If all of you here only have this much strength, then I'll be very disappointed, because the children I've trained are stronger than you." "Shut up." Although the several strong men were shocked by Tan Xiao's strength, they were much stronger than Yang Hu and Alu, so they all rushed forward. Not far away, upon seeing the situation, Anai Pungang hurriedly stood up and wanted to stop the strong men. However, Tang Yunda immediately grabbed his arm and shook his head at him. Then he smilingly said, "Pungang, I've never talked big to you, have I? I'll tell you now that Xiao is just playing around. He's not serious at all. Else, even if all of us here join hands, I'm afraid we won't be his match." Anai Pengong's expression turned ugly and he said, "What nonsense are you talking about, Brother Tang? Don't tell me you don't know the strength of our brothers? Tan Xiao may be able to defeat Yang Hu and Alu, but the two of them can't even be ranked in the middle among our 80 brothers. But those who are charging at him right now are all experts here." "Our so-called experts are just a joke in Xiao's eyes," said Tang Yunda with a faint smile. "Pungang, let them play since they want to. I'm not worried about them as their father, so what are you worried about?" Anai Pungang hesitated for a moment. Then he immediately sat down with a bit of annoyance and said, "Since you've said it like this, then I won't say anything more. I'd like to see if your precious son is really as capable as you said, and if he can easily beat us brothers to the ground." "Let's wait and see," said Tang Yunda meaningfully. "Humph, Xiao will surely surprise you." Anai Pungang snorted and said, "Humph, I'll be thanking God if you don't scare me." At the sight of the duo, a glint flashed in Anai Jia's eyes. After listening to the conversation between her father and Tang Yunda, she suddenly said, "Dad, I think Tan Xiao is really powerful. Haven't you seen it yet? Yang Hu and Alu didn't even cause any damage to Tan Xiao, and were easily defeated by Tan Xiao. Do you think that even Uncle Li Zaibiao can do this?" Anai Pungang stared blankly for a moment before his complexion completely changed. With a look of disbelief on his face, he got up from the chair again. He was keenly aware of the problem after his daughter reminded him. Let alone Li Zaibiao, even an expert like him couldn't do it. "There's another problem, Dad," said Anai Jia again. "You also didn't realize it. Tan Xiao can easily defeat Yang Hu and Alu. What does this mean? It means that he hasn't gone all out yet. Even his calm expression tells me that his strength is much stronger than what he showed. Much stronger. This? And Pungang was completely stunned. Chapter 1084. Tan Xiao stood there expressionlessly and looked at the three burly stalwart men who exuded a fierce aura. Just as they were a few meters away from him, he slowly raised his arm to stop them and said, "You three should be better than the previous two, but it's still not enough in my opinion. Why don't we play a bit bigger if you really want to play?" Li Zibiao took 2 steps back and looked at Tan Xiao with dread in his eyes. At the same time, he also felt deeply ashamed, feeling that he had made a fool of himself and made a fool of himself. Wait. He needed to wait for the result of the match. If Tan Xiao was defeated, then he wouldn't lose too much face even if he lost his face. But if Tan Xiao won again, he would really have no face to face the people in this warehouse. One of the 3 burly men asked in a low and muffled voice, "How do we play? The 3 of you may be experts in the eyes of others, but it's far from enough in my opinion," said Tan Xiao with a smile. "Since you want to have a match, then come at me together. With more than 70 people, you may be able to last longer." Arrogant. Arrogant. Let's fight first and talk later. The 3 men looked angry and rushed toward Tan Xiao at the same time. Tan Xiao shook his head with a smile. Not only did he not retreat or evade, but he also met the 3 men head-on. Facing the whistling fists and kicks coming at him, he punched more than a dozen times in a flash. As the 3 big men were sent flying backward, Tan Xiao grinned and said, "I just said that the 3 of you are too weak. It's too easy to torture you. Look at you, you just didn't listen to my advice. Now you're disgraced, aren't you?" Disgraced. Disgraced. The 3 men fell to the ground at this moment, wishing they could dig a hole and hide inside. Only now did they know how terrifying Tan Xiao was. Even if the 3 of them joined forces, they still couldn't even last for a second, and were cleaned up by him. The remaining 70 people, each and every one of them looked at Tan Xiao with tongue-tied eyes as though they were looking at a monster. Amazing. Valiant. They felt that many adjectives had been overshadowed, and there was no way to describe Tan Xiao's ferocity. They all knew the strength of the 3 brothers who were sent flying, but they didn't even last a second. This was simply unbelievable. Li Zibiao was also dumbfounded. He never expected that the battle would develop to this extent. How was this still a human? He was simply a beast in human form. And Pungang, who was sitting not far away, had just recovered from the shock. He directly covered his head upon seeing the current situation. He then looked at the smiling Tang Yunda and said, "I'm convinced, Brother Tang. There aren't many people that I Pungang admire in my life, but your son is definitely one of them. Amazing. So martial cultivators are actually this powerful." "I've told you before," said Tang Yunda with a smile. And Pungang forced a smile and said, "I didn't quite believe it before. I've heard of Tan Xiao's abilities in traditional Chinese medicine, but I've never heard of his martial arts. I know he's a cultivator, but that's too far away from me, so..." Tang Yunda waved his hand to interrupt him and smilingly said, "No need to explain. I brought Xiao here today, which proves that he has the ability to take over the affairs here and manage so many brothers. Pungang, you should understand how I handle things." With a solemn expression, and Pungang nodded and said, "I apologize for not thinking it through before, Brother Tang." "We're all brothers, so let's cut the formalities," said Tang Yunda with a smile. And Pungang finally smiled and nodded. "I'm completely relieved to hand over all of you to Tan Xiao." Tan Xiao glanced at the shocked Li Zibiao. In order to teach him a good lesson, he loudly said, "What are you guys still staring blankly for? Except for your captain, all of you can come at me together. Since my dad and uncle and I want to hand you over to me and let me lead you in the future, then show me your ability. Let me see if you have the qualifications to be my men." "What? Hand him over?" This. Each and every one of the more than 70 experts of the security company looked shocked, but they immediately shut their mouths when they saw Yang Hu and the others who had yet to crawl up from the ground. Li Zibiao took a deep breath. A glint flashed in his eyes as he shouted in a deep voice. Didn't you hear Tan Xiu's words? What are you still staring blankly for? Let's do it together and not lose face. Attack. 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 More than 70 big men looked fierce and ferocious as they quickly rushed toward Tang Xiu. They didn't hold back their strength and quickly appeared in front of Tan Xiu with an attitude of risking their lives. Bam, bam, bam. Tan Xiu's expression was very calm as he constantly wandered among the crowd, easily dodging their attacks. Every time he moved his feet, he would send a big man flying. His strength was very ingenious. He could send them flying, but he wouldn't cause them any serious injuries. Li Zibiao staggered 4 or 5 steps back. His eyes nearly popped out of their sockets. The scene in front of him was something he never dared to dream of before. Too terrifying. Too valiant. It was too unbelievable. It must be noted that he was well aware of the strength of these 70 brothers. In the eyes of countless people, each and every one of these brothers was an expert, a powerhouse. Even if they were to enter the battlefield, they could still kill in all directions. However, at this moment, they were like soft lambs being ravaged by a ferocious and hungry wolf. Anai Pingang was now completely dumbfounded. He had personally trained many of these brothers, so he naturally knew their strength. But now, am I dreaming? Anai Jia's eyes at his side were getting brighter and brighter. In the end, her eyes were completely filled with worship. She was a proud and arrogant woman. Even if she was very polite on the surface, she was full of arrogance deep down inside. But now, her arrogance was completely crushed by Tan Xiu's strength. Too amazing! Too amazing! Such a man was not only handsome and capable, but his martial prowess was also simply heaven-defying. If she could find such a boyfriend, no. If she could find such a husband, she would definitely have a sense of security in the future. 40 seconds. More than 70 strong men from the security company were all sent flying by Tan Xiu. Even though some of them endured the pain and crawled up from the ground, they didn't dare to take half a step forward. They were afraid. They had faced a hail of bullets and fierce enemies, yet they had never been afraid. But at this moment they were afraid. It was because they felt that they were not facing a human at all, but a devil king, a great devil with terrifying strength. Fight him? That was simply looking for a beating. Tan Xiu clapped his hands and nodded with satisfaction. You're not bad. At least you can hold on for some time, though it's only about 40 seconds. That's right, Uncle Li. Can we have a match now? You just said that I have thin arms and legs, and I don't even have the strength to truss a chicken. Li Zibiao's face flushed red. He was so ashamed that he almost covered his face and ran away. Looking at Tan Xiu's faint smile, his lips squirmed a few times and he coughed a few times. Then he waved his hand and said, forget it, forget it. I made an error in judgment. Furthermore, I was arrogant and conceited, and underestimated the enemy's taboo. Tang Xiu, I apologize for my previous attitude. Let's forget about the competition. I've learned my lesson and I'll keep it in mind. Tan Xiu was very satisfied with Li Zibiao's attitude. The reason why he fought with the others was that he wanted Li Zibiao, the captain, to understand that no matter what kind of enemy he would face in the future, he couldn't take it lightly. Being responsible for failing in an easy task was a trivial matter, but causing his brothers to die was a big deal. If that's the case, then forget it. Your injuries are nothing. I've controlled my strength very well, so you'll be able to recover in 10 minutes. There won't even be any pain left. Everyone's mouth couldn't help but twitch upon hearing this. Strength. Very well controlled? This child is truly heaven-defying. He can actually pay attention to propriety in the melee just now. What exactly is his bottom line? How powerful is he exactly? Tan Xiu returned to Tang Yunda and Anai Pinggang's group and said with a faint smile, Uncle Anai, did I perform well? Do you feel at ease handing them over to me? If I don't feel at ease handing them over to you, I'm afraid there's nothing in this world that can make me feel at ease. Anai Pingang forced a smile and said, You're very strong and amazing, Tan Xiu. Anai Pingang admire you. Your dad has given birth to a good son. Upon hearing this, Tang Yunda suddenly felt proud inwardly. He got up and smilingly said, Xiao, your uncle and I may be praising you, but you can't be arrogant and complacent. These brothers are my and Uncle Ni's brothers. They're our most trustworthy people, so you must treat them well in the future. Help them become stronger. Don't worry, Dad, Uncle and I. Tan Xiao nodded. After that, Tan Xiao turned to look at the strong men who crawled up from the ground. He cupped his fists and said, "Let me introduce myself again. I'm Tan Xiao, the son of Tang Yunda. In your eyes, I am very young, only in my 20s. Moreover, I look weak, without much strength. However, I can tell you that with the strength of all of you, even if your numbers were 100 times greater, you would still not be a match for me." Everyone looked at Tan Xiao in silence. Although they felt that Tan Xiao's words were a bit exaggerated, they still chose to be silent. They were too arrogant before, and their faces were still hurting until now. "Of course, you're very weak now, but that's because you don't have my guidance," said Tan Xiao again. "It's also because of this that I won't take you away for the time being, and will continue to leave you here. However, I will pass on a cultivation technique to you and draw up a training plan for you. You'll be eliminated if you don't reach the required strength within 3 months. You won't be qualified to be my men." Chapter 1085. As the captain in everyone's eyes, Li Zibiao paced 2 steps forward and asked in a deep voice, "May I ask what the cultivation technique is now? What is the level of strength you set?" "You're not qualified to know for the time being. You only need to know that each of you must be 10 times stronger than you are now after 3 months, said Tan Xiao indifferently. "Otherwise, you won't be qualified to be Tan Xiao's men." "Are you kidding me?" Li Zibiao angrily retorted. "We may not be as strong as you, but we're already experts in the eyes of countless people. At our level, if we want to improve further, we need to spend a lot of time training in order to improve even a little bit. You want us to be 10 times stronger in 3 months? That's impossible. There's nothing in this world that's impossible." Tan Xiao sneered. "It all depends on whether you can put in the effort. Tang 28, come here." Tang 28, who had been following Tan Xiao but had never spoken, suddenly came to Tan Xiao's side and respectfully greeted, "Sect Master." "Tell them how old you are," said Tan Xiao with a nod. 8.5 years old, answered Tang 28. Tan Xiao shifted to the people in front of him and said in a deep voice, "Did you hear that? He's 8.5 years old. How much strength do you think he has at this age?" Li Zibiao squinted his eyes and observed Tang 28 a few times. Then he said, "He may be a martial arts prodigy, but I'm afraid it's difficult for him to have much strength due to his age. We're not your match, but he. Tan Xiao sneered. He. Tang 28, "Captain Li didn't attack just now. You should have seen it, right? You should know what to do now, right?" Tang 28 slightly nodded and paced a few steps toward Li Zibiao. He cupped his fists and said, "Please enlighten me, Captain Li." Li Zibiao was stunned, as were the 79 strong men from the security company. Even Ni Pungang and Ni Jia, who were sitting there, were dumbfounded at the moment and looked at Tan Xiao and Tang 28 incredulously. "Open, are you kidding me? An 8.5-year-old child dared to challenge Li Zibiao? Had the world gone haywire? Or was there something wrong with the brains of Tan Xiao and the 8.5-year-old child?" After Li Zibiao reacted, he looked at Tan Xiao and angrily said, "Are you humiliating me, Tan Xiao?" Tan Xiao sneered and said, "You can take it as me humiliating you if you want. Now he wants to challenge you again. Are you even afraid of an 8.5-year-old child?" Yang Hu yelled angrily, "Captain, teach him a lesson." Alu also shouted, "Captain, since they insist on showing off, then let's do it. Let them know that you are not weak." "That's right, do it." "So be it. Teach him a lesson." Li Zibiao was so angry that he laughed. He gave a thumbs up to Tan Xiao and angrily said, "Well done. I didn't expect you to humiliate people just because you're strong. Since you want me to fight a child, I'll fulfill your wish. Let's see how you deal with this later. Did you forget what I just told you, Captain Li?" Tan Xiao sneered. "Don't be too full of yourself, else you'll get slapped in the face again, and it'll be even more painful." Li Zibiao took 2 deep breaths to control his emotions. He then looked at Tang 28 and said, I won't show mercy to you since you want to challenge me, kid. Just now your so-called sect master personally said that we can't let our guard down when facing anyone. You went all out to show your respect to me, said Tang 28 with an expressionless face. Of course, you're too weak and sect master doesn't want to hurt you, so I naturally can't hurt you. Let's do it. Humph. Had it not been for the previous incident, Li Zibiao wouldn't have bothered with a little kid at all. But when he recalled what Tang Xiu had done before, he immediately put away his carelessness and kicked Tang 28 without any reservation. Pa! Tang 28 raised his small hand and directly slapped Li Zibiao's instep. Li Zibiao still felt as though he was hit by a hammer despite being separated by a shoe. You're too weak and can't pose any threat to me. No wonder sect master felt bored and ordered all of them to attack you together. Tang 28 looked at Li Zibiao's face and his small body quickly leaped up. His foot moved lightning fast and directly kicked Li Zibiao's cheek. It was a kick. He only used 30% of his strength, yet it still sent Li Zibiao flying more than 10 meters away and heavily slammed against the wall. What? That's impossible. My eyes must be playing tricks on me. Captain. What's going on? How can that child be so fast? And his strength? Even if Captain himself flew backward, it's impossible for him to fly that far, no? Did that little guy start practicing martial arts in his mother's womb? Even if he did, he can't be so powerful, right? I must be dreaming. I'm so fucking messed up. The 79 members of the security company exclaimed one after another. Disbelief was written all over their faces, as though they had seen the most incredible thing in the world. Are you all shocked? Tan Xiu lightly asked. Do you think it's impossible for Tang 28 to have such a powerful strength since he's only 8.5 years old? Although the 79 people did not reply, their expressions clearly expressed their inner thoughts, which was, they did not believe it. Make them believe it, Tang 28, said Tan Xiu. Understood. Tang 28's figure instantly turned into a hazy image. His figure flickered, and the crackling sounds of his attacks were particularly ear-piercing. The 79 strong men who had just crawled up from the ground were knocked down again. This time, Tang 28's control of his strength was not very good, so his attacks were heavier than Tan Xiu's. For a time, the strong men who were knocked down couldn't get up from the ground, and could only hug the place they were hit, curling up and screaming on the ground. Tang 28 stood in the middle of the crowd and coldly said, Sect Master has been educating all of you ever since you entered this place, making you understand that you can't judge a book by its cover. But all of you are too stupid and too arrogant. That's why you're being punished like this. Punishment? That's right, it's punishment. Everyone, including Li Zibiao, felt as though a storm was set off inside their hearts. At the same time, they were also deeply ashamed. If Tan Xiu's defeat made them regret their previous arrogance, then Tang 28's defeat at this moment was more like an invisible slap that constantly slapped their faces. Everyone's face was boiling hot at this moment. They wished they could find a hole to burrow into and never come out again. How shameful. It was too shameful. An 8.5-year-old child was able to beat them, who thought they were battle-hardened experts, to the ground in such a short period of time. And Ai Penggong's breathing was a bit heavy, and his eyes were fixated on Tang 28. At this moment, he was deeply aware of how terrifying cultivators were. He also remembered what Tan Xiu said before, saying that he could become a cultivator within 3 months and become a qi refining stage cultivator. Tan Xiu, can I be more powerful than Tang 28 if I cultivate diligently 3 months later? Ai Penggong couldn't wait to ask. Tan Xiu turned around and looked at Ai Penggong's expectant eyes. He slowly shook his head and smilingly said, Tang 28 is not a weakling, Uncle Ai. He's a genius who stood out from tens of thousands of children. Let alone 3 months of cultivation, you may not be able to reach his level even if you cultivate for 3 years. The road ahead must be walked slowly, and cultivation must be accumulated slowly. Ai Penggong's pupils shrunk and disappointment filled his heart. Tang 28's combat prowess was too strong. He could tell that Tang 28's combat prowess was no worse than Tan Xiu's just by looking at him. However, he didn't know their actual strength. After thinking up to this point, he asked, Tan Xiu, How much of his strength did Tang 28 use just now? Tell him, Tang 28, said Tan Xiao with a smile. Maybe less than 30%, answered Tang 28. Hiss. And I Pingang couldn't help but gasp. He looked at Tang 28 as though he was looking at an alien. How old is he? An 8.5-year-old child only used less than 30% of his strength to defeat so many of his battle-hardened brothers. This is simply heaven-defying. The pain on the 80 security company's members finally eased a lot. But after hearing Enai Pingang, Tan Xiao, and Tang 28's words, they couldn't help but shiver with intense fear inside. That's right, it was fear. They simply couldn't imagine how tragic their deaths would be if they were to encounter such a terrifying enemy on the battlefield. Tan Xiao shifted to Tang Yunda and smilingly said, Dad, the sparring competition is over, so why don't you and Uncle and I have a few more words? Time is precious, so I'll be ready to train them well and strive to make their strength soar as soon as possible. Then I'll say a few words. And I Pingang slowly nodded. Brothers, all of you weren't chosen by Tang Yunda back then, but by me. You are all our brothers, and we are truly on the same side. Today, Tang Yunda and I have made a decision to hand you over to Tan Xiao so that he can train you well and turn you into elite troops. Therefore, you must obey his orders from now on and regard him as your highest officer. The 80 people didn't speak, but there was a bit of expectation in their eyes. They clearly realized that if they chose to obey Tan Xiao's orders, they could get Tan Xiao's training and become powerful experts in the future. They wanted to become stronger. They wanted to have the power to take revenge. Chapter 1086. Tang Yunda paced 2 steps forward and said in a deep voice, Ladies and gentlemen, I believe you all know the reason why I founded this organization. It had been more than 20 years. The blood feud between his brothers had to be avenged. Some of the brothers who died in battle were your relatives, and some were our comrades. Since you chose to join us, you should have the mentality of killing your enemies and taking revenge for your brothers. However, more than 20 years have passed. I don't know if you still remember the hatred between our brothers back then, or if you're still willing to take revenge for them. So today, I will give you a chance to choose. If you are willing to disregard everything, even if it means losing your lives, to avenge your brothers, I welcome all of you to stay. If you have already changed your mind, you can choose to leave now. Furthermore, I will give each of you 2 million yuan to let you have a good life in the future. Tang Yunda's expression became particularly serious as he spoke up to hear. Revenge. I've waited for so many years just for the day of revenge. SOE Corporation, how stolen. They all deserve to die. Blood for blood, a tooth for a tooth. Kill. All 80 of them revealed hatred in their eyes at the same time. There was also a strong sense of determination in their eyes. Tang Yunda straightened his body as he watched his brothers crawl up from the ground. He slowly raised his right arm and performed an extremely standard military salute. Schwa. Even though they were no longer serving in the army, they still saluted, expressing their respect for their brothers who had died in battle, and their willingness to stay and fight alongside their brothers who were still alive. Now I'll hand you over to my son Tan Xiao, said Tang Yunda in a deep voice. Are you willing? I'm willing. The tidy reply was deafening. Tang Yunda nodded silently and said, Tang Yunda's son, I can assure you that he'll treat you like his own brother. My dad is right, said Tan Xiao in a deep voice. Since he handed you over to me, I'll lead you to charge and break through the enemy lines. I'll kill all the enemies of House Dolan and destroy the SOE company and other companies controlled by House Dolan. Li Zibiao took a few steps forward and asked aloud, I have 2 questions. Tan Xiao said, If you have any questions, just ask. First question, how shall we address you in the future? Asked Li Zibiao. Tan Xiao said, Call me boss first. Yes, boss. The 80 people shouted in unison. Li Zibiao asked again, When are we going to make a move, boss? We've been waiting for so many years, we can't wait any longer. Tan Xiao shook his head and said, I've been waiting for so many years, so I don't mind waiting for a while longer. Now is not the time to attack House Dolan. Only when you become stronger can I lead you to charge and break through the enemy lines. 3 months, I'll give you 3 months. If you can increase your strength by 10 times within 3 months, then you will be qualified to become my subordinates. But if you can't, then you can take 2 million and retire. Tang Yunda and Enai Pungang exchanged glances and tacitly left. Enai Jia also left at the same time. Tan Xiao, however, was not in a hurry to leave. Since he had decided to incorporate these people in front of him, he didn't want to waste time and directly taught them the cultivation technique. Although he only imparted some of the contents, which could only let them cultivate to the golden core stage at most, it was enough to make these people ecstatic. Soon after, Tan Xiao drew up a training plan and took out some medicinal pills from his interspatial ring, giving 2 to each of them. These 2 medicinal pills could allow these warriors who had qi in their bodies, but didn't know how to control it, to quickly transform their true qi into true essence. The foundation was what Tan Xiao valued the most. With the foundation, it would be easier for them to step into the ranks of cultivators, and it would be much easier to train them. At first, when the 80 people saw the training plan formulated by Tan Xiao, all of them looked horrified. But after Tan Xiao stated that only by following his training plan could they increase their strength by 10 times within 3 months, they all gritted their teeth and agreed. In the evening, Tan Xiao left Tang 28 with his father, Tang Yunda, to accompany his father to drink and reunite with his old brothers. He then quietly took Tang En and rushed to Liangong City. The distance between Shanghai and Liangong City was only about 400 to 500 kilometers. Since the duo took the high-speed rail, it only took them 2 to 3 hours to reach Liangong City. Sect Master Jin Shi, the chief person in charge of intelligence, had arrived in Liangong City ahead of time after his injury had healed, and had been waiting outside the train station for a long time. "How's the situation over there?" asked Tan Xiao while walking. "There are still a lot of strangers entering Liangong City. Their whereabouts are the same as the previous ones. All of them are erratic and very strange," said Jin Shi. "But our men have found their final gathering point." "Where is it?" Tan Xiao raised his brows and asked. "It's a private club in the Golden Coast," answered Jin Shi. "Is this club under Wenfeng's name?" asked Tan Xiao. "According to our intelligence personnel's investigation, this club isn't under the name of Wenfeng or the Rivers and Mountains Group. It's under the name of a man named Zhu Heng. We've also investigated this Zhu Heng. This is the only property under his name, and he has no personal relationship with Wenfeng. Further, there are rumors that Wenfeng and Zhu Heng once had a grudge against each other, and the 2 of them fought in public. However, someone mediated later, so the matter was eventually left unsettled. It's a smokescreen." A contemptuous look flashed in Tan Xiao's eyes. It was very likely that Wenfeng and Zhu Heng had a deep relationship, since those people who had a relationship with Wenfeng entered the private club run by Zhu Heng. Maybe they belonged to the same force, and the reason why they fought in public was likely to be a cover-up. "How many people have gathered in the Golden Coast now?" asked Tan Xiao again. "There's no way to calculate the specific details. The whereabouts of the other party are too secretive, and our intelligence personnel have yet to investigate many of them," answered Jin Shi. "Also, the security personnel in the Golden Coast may look sparse and ordinary from the outside, but the inside is extraordinarily tight. There are at least 200 to 300 security personnel stationed there, so it's impossible to sneak in." Tan Xiao's expression turned serious. Such a high degree of security work indicated that the force was extremely huge, and this gathering was very important. Just as he entered the car, Jin Shi's mobile phone vibrated. He took it out and picked up the call, and the intelligence personnel's report came out. Someone just entered the Golden Coast. The identity of the other party is Shaanxi Province's wealthy businessman, Guo. He has a very high status in Shaanxi Province, and his wealth is also very huge. "Got it." Jin Shi hung up the phone and looked at Tan Xiao saying, "Sect Master, just now." Tang Xiao raised his hand to interrupt him. He lightly nodded and said, "I heard that Guotao's name. He's a real estate owner with a net worth of tens of billions of yuan. Also, he's a martial artist who runs a security company among his businesses. There are many big bosses with a net worth of tens of billions in the country, Sect Master. How do you know him? Could it be that you—" "No need to make wild guesses. I heard about him from a friend of mine, said Tan Xiu lightly. Before, Tan Xiu had heard Li Laozhan mention this wealthy businessman from Shaanxi province when he was chatting with him. He also learned that Guo was a martial arts fanatic who once fought with Li Laozhan and beat the latter miserably. The most important thing was that Guo was a ruthless man with a bestial nature to his bones. Every time he fought with someone, he would never stop until he saw blood, regardless of the identity of the other party. After giving it a thought, Tan Xiu took out his mobile and dialed Li Laozhan's number. Hello, Brother Tang? What kind of wind blew your phone to me today? This big brother has been waiting for you to drink with me for a long time. Li Laozhan's hearty laughter came from the phone. Old brother Li, I've been dealing with a lot of things recently, and many of them are thorny issues, so I couldn't find the time to drink with you for a while, said Tan Xiu with a smile. Just wait for me. I'll definitely find you and drink until we're drunk. It's a deal then, said Li Laozhan with a smile. Anyways, there should be something you need from me since you're calling me now, right? Tell me, as long as this big brother can do it, I'll do it without any hesitation. As a matter of fact, I just want to ask you about someone. I want to know how much you know about him, said Tan Xiu with a smile. Who is it? Asked Li Laozhan in surprise. I still remember that when we were chatting, you told me about a person, Guo, a wealthy businessman from Shaanxi province, said Tan Xiu. I want to know how much you know about this person, old brother Li. Li Laozhan was silent for more than 10 seconds before he slowly said, Brother Tang, if you ask someone else about him, perhaps you'll only get a superficial answer and won't be able to tell any details about him. But I know something about him, and it's a secret. Tan Xiu's expression moved and he inquired, Old brother Li, please tell me about it. Guo is a successful wealthy businessman on the surface, but he's also a martial arts practitioner. He's very strong, and even if he hasn't reached the martial arts grandmaster realm, he's not far from it, said Li Laozhan. Furthermore, he also has a security company under him, and all of them are martial arts practitioners. Some of them are even experts that he has personally trained. However, that's not the secret I want to tell you. Guo has another identity. He has been abroad for many years, and only returned to the country more than 10 years ago to set up his own company. He belongs to a very mysterious organization abroad. I don't know much about the details of this organization, but I do know that this organization is good at investigating and selling intelligence. Intelligence? The Darkwind organization? A chilling light flashed in Tan Xiu's eyes as he asked, Old brother Li, how do you know this secret information? Chapter 1087. I was seriously injured after that martial arts competition, said Li Laozhan. I was hospitalized for more than 2 months, so I personally went to look for him, but I couldn't find even a shadow of him. Therefore, I sent some people to investigate him in secret, but it took me a lot of effort to find out about him. Why selling information? Asked Tan Xiu. Brother Tang, you should ask your disciple about this, said Li Laozhan. Didn't Chen Zhizhong tell you about Guo? Chen Zhizhong also knows about Guo? Asked Tan Xiu in surprise. Brother Tang, the reason why I sent some people to investigate Guo selling information is because your disciple, Chen Zhizhong, bought it from him, said Li Laozhan. Perhaps your disciple, Chen Zhizhong, knows more about Guo than I do. I'll contact Chen Zhizhong first, old brother Li, said Tan Xiu. I'll look for you for a drink later. All right. Li Laozhan smiled and directly hung up the phone. Tan Xiu didn't rush to call Chen Zhizhong again. Instead, he slowly closed his eyes and the information about the Darkwind organization appeared in his mind. The Darkwind organization. It was like a pair of eyes in the sky, always watching everything happening in every corner of the world. It was like an invisible imperial sword hovering above one's head, and a slight carelessness would likely cause one's neck to be cut off by this sword. How far is it? Asked Tan Xiu as he suddenly opened his eyes. It's a 40-minute drive, answered Jin Shi respectfully. Don't go to the Golden Coast for the time being, said Tang Xiu in a deep voice. Withdraw most of the intelligence personnel monitoring the Golden Coast, and leave a few elites to keep an eye on a few groups of people. That's right, keep an eye on Guo. Maybe he's the breakthrough point. Tang En's figure silently appeared next to Tan Xiao. Even Jin Shi, who was sitting on the front seat, had a slight change in his expression, and a bit of dread secretly rose inside his heart. Grandmaster, can't we just sneak in and get all the information directly? I have a feeling that things aren't that simple. Tan Xiao shook his head. You can turn invisible, and I also have an invisibility talisman with me. However, I don't think it's safe. If the Golden Coast security is very tight, they might have some means to detect us. So, at this time we can't act rashly and alert them. We need to keep an eye on one or a few people, then break through them and thoroughly understand this organization. I'll personally keep an eye on Guo, said Tang En respectfully. Tan Xiao slightly nodded in response and said, Jin Shi, send Tang En there. I parked the car by the roadside and took a taxi to find a place to stay. Remember, once you confirm that the target has left the Golden Coast, inform me immediately. Yes. Jin Shi complied and parked the car on the side of the road. Tan Xiao got off alone. Because there were no buildings nearby, and both sides of the road were filled with dealers, Tan Xiao took out his phone and dialed Chen Jizhong's number. Master. Chen Jizhong's respectful voice came from the phone. Where are you? Asked Tan Xiao. Liang'ang City, answered Chen Jizhong. I'll send you the address. Come here at once. Asked Tan Xiao lightly. Remember, don't be ostentatious and come here by yourself. Half an hour later, a black Audi car stopped next to Tan Xiao. After the driver's door was opened, Chen Jizhong, dressed in a black suit, strode to Tan Xiao and said, How did you come to Liang'ang City, master? And why are you here? That's what I wanted to ask, answered Tan Xiao. I came to Liang'ang City because I found a secret of an old friend, so I quietly followed him, said Chen Jizhong. There's a private clubhouse in Liang'ang City called the Golden Coast where a lot of special people are having a gathering. I'm going to find that old friend of mine to settle this grudge after their gathering is over. Tan Xiao squinted his eyes and asked, Is that old friend of yours called Guo? Chen Jizhong looked surprised, but he slowly shook his head and said, It's not Guo, it's Wenfeng. A glint flashed in Tan Xiao's eyes and he said in a deep voice, Tell me everything you know about Wenfeng, Guo, and those special people from all over the Golden Coast. They're all members of the Darkwind organization if my guess is correct, master, said Chen Jizhong. Today should be the important triennial meeting of the Darkwind organization in China. Therefore, those people who came to the Golden Coast today should be the Darkwind organization's leaders in various provinces and cities across the country. The Darkwind organization? Killing intent flashed in Tan Xiao's eyes as he asked, What is this transference transposition? Transference transposition is the name of the important meeting held once every 3 years, explained Chen Jizhong. As the name suggests, the person in charge of each province will exchange places with the person in charge of other provinces, while the person in charge of each city will exchange places with the person in charge of another city. That means the intelligence members of the entire Darkwind organization will be completely disrupted and reshuffled to take charge of new places. Why would they do that? Asked Tan Xiao, puzzled. Isn't it very troublesome? It's to prevent the organization's members from developing their private forces without permission, answered Chen Jizhong. How do you know so much about this matter? Asked Tan Xiao. Chen Jizhong was silent for a moment, and then forced a wry smile. Master, I actually had a lot of interactions with Wenfeng and Guo, and some important things happened between us. More than a decade ago, Wenfeng and Guo came to me together, hoping to buy several precious medicinal herbs from me. Hence, we became friends after constant contact. Furthermore, the three of us are martial arts practitioners and have our own topics that we're good at, so our relationship is constantly improving. We're just short of burning yellow paper and drinking blood wine to kowtow and become sworn brothers. Wenfeng is cunning, like a fox full of schemes and intrigues. The more I met him, the more I couldn't understand him. Guo, on the other hand, is a ruthless and merciless character. He usually looks like a mature and stable successful man, but he's like a different person in two situations. One is when he's drinking, and the other is when he's fighting with others. Having said that, Chen Zhizhong took out a half-pack of cigarettes and handed one to Tan Xiao. He personally lit one for Tan Xiao, and then lit one for himself. After taking a puff, he continued, "One time, Guo was drunk and inadvertently revealed that he's the head supervisor of the Darkwind organization in Shaanxi province. He also told me that Wen Feng is the head supervisor of Liangong City. As a result, he tried to get rid of me after he learned about it. I've fought with the two of them in secret many times, and I even tried to find two martial Dao Grand Masters to protect me for a period of time. They didn't dare to expose their identities to others, much less their superiors in the Darkwind organization, so they negotiated with me. I'm responsible for keeping it a secret for them, and they won't send anyone to kill me again." "It's not over yet, is it?" asked Tan Xiao lightly. Murderous intent burst out from Chen Zhizhong's eyes as he said, "Of course it's not over, Master. Those two bastards promised me, yet they still sent people to assassinate me. My wife was assassinated by them." "So you've been investigating them?" asked Tan Xiao. "That's right." Chen Zhizhong nodded. "I've been trying to investigate them for so many years. I even bought intel from them. I don't care whether it's true or false. What I care about is getting more and more information about them every time I come into contact with them." Tang Xiao silently finished smoking the cigarette, and then asked in a deep voice, "If I give you a team of very powerful experts, can you become their commander-in-chief? Do you have the confidence to exterminate all the Darkwind members gathered in the Golden Coast?" Chen Zhizhong's eyes lit up and hurriedly replied, "I'm absolutely sure." Tan Xiao nodded in response. After dialing a number, he said, "Senior Duanmu, the tumor in China should be removed, right?" "What do you mean?" Duanmu Lin's confused voice came out of the phone. "It's the Darkwind," answered Tan Xiao in a deep voice. Duanmu Lin was silent for a few seconds and then slowly said, "They're very cunning and well hidden. Although a small number of the Darkwind's members are under the surveillance of our country's intelligence agents, most of them are unsure of their identities. Therefore, acting rashly will not only alert them, but we also need to worry that they will be driven to desperation and do something harmful to society. There's an opportunity to help the country remove this tumor," said Tan Xiao. "Are you willing to act against them? Are you sure?" asked Duanmu Lin hurriedly. "Can we really dig out all the Darkwind's members in China?" asked Duanmu Lin hastily. "There may be a few who slip through the net, but considering the entire Darkwind's intelligence network in China, I think we can act against them," Tan Xiao said. "It's definitely worth it." Duanmu Lin quickly asked. "Where are you, Tan Xiao?" "Liangong City," answered Tan Xiao. "Give me 5 hours and send me your specific address in Liangong City." "I'll be there soon," said Duanmu Lin in a deep voice. "Be careful when you come here, Senior Duanmu," said Tan Xiao with a light smile. "Liangong City has become the gathering place for all the Darkwind's top brass in China. I'm afraid that countless Darkwind's intelligence agents have appeared in the entire city, and the Golden Coast Private Club in Liangong City has become their lair." "Don't worry." Duanmu Lin's voice was full of confidence. Tan Xiao hung up the phone and looked at Chen Zhizhong with a smile. "I'll hand over the experts of the State Ability Users Bureau to you. You must perform well. We'll immediately act after we get more information." Chapter 1088. 2 years ago, Chen Zhizhong was just an ordinary martial artist, not even a second-rate expert. At most, he could only bully those local ruffians. However, after 2 years of cultivation, his cultivation realm had been constantly improving, and he had now broken through to the late stage of foundation establishment. Killing martial arts grandmasters was absolutely as easy as crushing ants. "Master." Chen Zhizhong wanted to say something but hesitated, his face full of hesitation. Tan Xiao seemed to have seen through his thoughts and raised his brows. "You don't have confidence in yourself, do you? You're absolutely certain that the other party is an expert from the state's Special Abilities Bureau, so you don't dare to fight them?" "A little bit indeed," said Chen Zhizhong with a forced smile. "I was just a businessman before, after all, and those people are the armed forces of the state. Even if I want to, the consequences will be unimaginable if they don't listen to my command at the critical moment. You said that you were a businessman before, but now your identity is different, said Tan Xiao in a deep voice. You're a cultivator now, and a foundation establishment cultivator at that stage. In my eyes, a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator is as weak as an ant, but in the eyes of others, a late-stage foundation establishment cultivator is definitely a god. Let me tell you something. There are no more than 5 ability users in the entire Special Abilities Bureau who can defeat you in a one-on-one fight. Chen Zhizhong's eyes lit up and confidence suddenly rose inside him. He looked at Tan Xiao's serious expression and gritted his teeth. I won't let you down, master. A smile finally appeared on Tan Xiao's face. You must always remember that you're no longer who you used to be, Zhizhong. Don't limit your world to the business world, let alone the country. You're my disciple, so your vision can't be limited to this earth. There are countless races in the vast universe, and there is a higher plane above our universe. There are hundreds of millions of races and trillions of lives in that higher plane, among which there are countless powerhouses who can destroy the world with a flick of their fingers. In the future, you'll have to face those gods and immortals, not the common people on earth. His Chen Zhizhong couldn't help but gasp. This was the first time he heard such a shocking statement from Tan Xiao. Master, could it be that what you said is true? There are countless aliens in our universe? What about the higher planes? Is there really an existence that can destroy the world with a flick of a finger? Chen Zhizhong's voice was trembling. There was anticipation and fear in his tone. Tan Xiao sighed in his heart. He found that since Chen Zhizhong became his disciple, he had not given much guidance to Chen Zhizhong. He had even told him very little about the cultivation world and the higher level of things. Lighting up another cigarette, Tan Xiao said, Zhizhong, your company's affairs should have been handed over to your son, right? You're wrong. Tan Xiao's expression suddenly changed, and a strong killing intent emerged in his eyes. He instantly grabbed Chen Zhizhong's neck, and a sharp dagger was pressed against his heart. Master. Chen Zhizhong revealed a look of disbelief. He simply couldn't believe that Tan Xiao would suddenly attack him. Stretch out your wrist, said Tan Xiao coldly. Upon hearing it, Chen Zhizhong immediately stretched out his left wrist. He could feel that the sharp dagger was taken away by Tan Xiao from his heart. His expression relaxed a bit. Tan Xiao put away the dagger and grasped Chen Zhizhong's pulse. What made him angry was that someone had placed a seal inside Chen Zhizhong's body. Not only could this seal shield Chen Zhizhong's own power, but it could also affect his spiritual sense, causing his spiritual sense to be trapped in his sea of consciousness, causing a huge gap in his memory. Master! Chen Zhizhong cautiously called out. Tan Xiao loosened his grip on Chen Zhizhong's neck. Killing intent flashed in his eyes as he asked in a deep voice. Who have you seen after leaving Kunlun Mountain? Can you remember who has done something to you? Chen Zhizhong looked confused as he shook his head and said, No. After returning to Star City, I immediately arranged the company's affairs and handed over all the big and small matters to my son. Every day, huh? How come I can't remember anything? What am I doing every night? Tan Xiao loosened his grip on Chen Zhizhong's wrist and said in a deep voice, Follow me. Liangong City. The Blue Ocean Golden Metropolis Hotel was located in the city's new development district, a bustling area. It was a 24-story hotel building with a presidential suite on the 20th floor, which was the most expensive hotel in Liangong City. Inside the presidential suite 2045, the room was pitch black. The window was open, and the cold wind blew in from the outside. 2 figures flashed lightning fast and entered through the window. Tang Xiao's handsome face was illuminated by a lighter as he lit a cigarette. We can get a room directly, master. Chen Zhizhong couldn't figure out why Tan Xiao didn't want to get a room, but sneaked into this presidential suite instead. It must be noted that he had brought a group of men to this hotel, and stayed in the 19th floor, where he had a room. The entire Liangong City should be under the surveillance of the Darkwind's intel operatives. Tan Xiao shook his head and said, If my guess is correct, Wenfeng already got the news of your arrival the moment you stepped into Liangong City. It's very likely that there are many intel operatives of the Darkwind organization lurking in the dark in this hotel. Once the news of me coming back is leaked, I'm afraid they will start investigating my whereabouts. What's wrong with me, master? asked Chen Zhizhong in a flash. I can't remember what I've been doing every night on the way here. I don't even know where I've been every night. Someone did something to your body. Although they didn't completely seal your cultivation, the restriction technique they used was very clever. You could have lived safe and sound for about 3 months at most if I hadn't discovered it in time, said Tang Xiu lightly. But after 3 months, your internal organs will begin to fester, and your meridians will break bit by bit. At that time, no one will be able to save you unless a golden immortal of the great all-embracing heaven descends to the mortal world. Further, your memory has been affected by the restriction, causing you to forget a lot of important things. Chen Zhizhong's face turned pale, and fear could be seen in his eyes. After Tan Xiu finished speaking, he stammered, Master, you're right. I've been feeling that my memory has been deteriorating recently, and I can't remember a lot of things. It turns out that someone has done something to me. Tan Xiu pointed to the ground in front of him and said, Sit down cross-legged. I'll help you remove the restriction in your body. Also, I need some serene articulation grass to awaken your sealed memories. Chen Zhizhong hurriedly sat cross-legged in front of Tan Xiu and asked, What kind of medicinal herb is this serene articulation grass, Master? How come I've never heard of it before? You really haven't heard of it? It's because the serene articulation grass is not a medicinal herb, but a plant that can cause serious harm to the human body, said Tan Xiu lightly. Only poison masters who like to refine poisons will pay attention to this plant. They will extract its internal essence and mix it with the serpent dragon pill to form a terrifying toxin. Where can I find the serene articulation grass? Asked Chen Zhizhong. You don't need to worry about the serene articulation grass, said Tan Xiu. If nothing unexpected happens, someone will send it to you by tomorrow evening at the latest. Having said that, Tan Xiu reached out to press Chen Zhizhong's head and cast a secret technique. It only took him a few minutes to remove the restriction in his body. Liangong City, Golden Coast Private Club. A faint fragrance of jasmine pervaded the air in an exquisite garden house. A thin and pale old man with a head full of white hair was sitting cross-legged on a praying mat in cultivation. Suddenly, his body slightly trembled, and he violently spurted out a mouthful of blood. As his eyes suddenly opened, a strong killing intent emerged in his eyes. It was broken? The old man's thin body floated up and instantly appeared at the window. He looked at the swaying shadows of the trees in the dark night outside, and slightly clenched his fists. Bam! With just a punch, the entire window was blasted out. Whoosh! 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 Numerous lightning-fast silhouettes dashed over from all directions. In just a few breaths, there were already dozens of men dressed in black and wearing black masks appearing outside the window. What happened, Elder Wei? Wen Feng, who was wearing pajamas and slippers, flashed from a distance and looked at the old man with a face full of killing intent. His heart suddenly trembled and he respectfully asked, Someone broke the restriction I cast on Chen Zhizhong's body, said Elder Wei with a heavy tone. Wen Feng looked surprised and said, Elder Wei, didn't you say that no one in this world can break the restriction you cast on Chen Zhizhong's body except for you? Only a little time has passed, how come? Shut up. Elder Wei glared at Wen Feng with eyes full of killing intent. If Wen Feng dared to say another word, he would definitely kill him immediately even if he belonged to the same organization as Wen Feng. Wen Feng's breath stagnated. Although he was angry inwardly, he still looked respectful on the surface. Others might not know how terrifying and ruthless this Elder Wei was, but he was perfectly aware of it. At least a few of the brothers who came out of the training camp with him in the past had died in the hands of this old man. Elder Wei gasped for a few breaths and his murderous eyes moved away from Wen Feng. He looked at the direction of Star City and coldly said, The restriction I cast on Chen Zhizhong's body can't be easily broken even by a nascent soul stage expert, unless they are proficient in the secret arts of my sect, and are proficient in breaking restrictions. Tell me, is there any powerhouse around Chen Zhizhong? Wen Feng hesitated for a moment and said, I sent some people to investigate Chen Zhizhong some time ago, and found that there is indeed an expert around him. However, he's just a young man in his 20s. Even if he's very powerful, he shouldn't be that powerful, right? Chapter 1089. A chilling light flashed in Elder Wei's eyes as he said in a deep voice, "There are cultivators in China, and the number is definitely more than the fingers on both hands. The more powerful one's cultivation is, the more they can change their appearance. If their cultivation breaks through to the nascent soul stage, they can even remold their body and return to their youthful appearance. Who's that guy?" "According to our investigation, Chen Zhizhong once worshipped a master 2 years ago," said Wenfeng. "We haven't found out what exactly that master taught him. But after the progress of Chen Zhizhong's strength in the past 2 years, he should have been taught martial arts or cultivation. His name is Tanxiu, a famous young divine doctor in China. He's also the big boss of China's Magnificent Tang Corporation." Magnificent Tang Corporation? A glint flashed in Elder Wei's eyes. He had heard of this corporation before. Even some of the top figures in the Darkwind organization had plotted to acquire the Magnificent Tang Corporation's products and technologies. Unfortunately, the Chinese government supported the Magnificent Tang Corporation, so it was ultimately left unsettled. "Wenfeng, you should have investigated Tanxiu very carefully given your character, right? Tell me everything about him," said Elder Wei in a deep voice. A forced smile appeared on Wenfeng's square face. He took out a wooden box from his bosom and carefully took out a Cuban cigar from it. After giving it to Elder Wei, he personally lit it for him and said with a forced smile, "Elder Wei, I did send a lot of intelligence agents to investigate Tanxiu's information, but there's an invisible group of forces that has been hindering us. Hence, the information about Tanxiu is really pitiful. All right, I'll send someone to deliver the information to you." Elder Wei angrily glared at Wenfeng and impatiently waved his hand. "Hurry up. I must figure out who the person behind Chen Zhizhong is. I still want to see who has the ability to break the restriction I placed in Chen Zhizhong's body." Understood. Wenfeng respectfully nodded and immediately ran to the distance. However, a few minutes later, he returned helplessly and quickly came to Elder Wei's side. He forced a smile and said, "Elder Wei, the Liangong branch just sent a message. The keeper lost the access card to the database, so they can't send the information here immediately. I still have an access card with me, so I'm afraid I'll have to go back myself." Old Wei shouted angrily, "Bring that keeper over. He actually lost such an important thing. Such a dereliction of duty will bring a huge hidden danger to our organization. Bastard, I'm going to make him beg for death." Wenfeng felt a chill in his heart. Everything he had said just now had been a lie to Elder Wei. The reason why he wanted to leave the Golden Coast Private Club was that staying there was like staying in a tiger's den. If they were not careful, they might be killed by the unpredictable Old Wei. Dodge. If he could hide for another minute, he would not stay for another second. As long as this form displacement transposition meeting ended, this old thing would be able to leave the kingdom of Wuxia. Then he would no longer have to worry about anyone or anything. Immediately after, Wenfeng quickly drove away from the Golden Coast with his 4 trusted subordinates. Not long after they left, the people who were monitoring the Golden Coast spread the news. At the Blue Ocean Golden Metropolis Hotel, Tanxiu and Chen Zhizhong were hiding in the presidential suite and talking when Tanxiu's cell phone suddenly rang. He picked it up and heard the report coming from the other side. He nodded and said, "I got it. Catch him and kill all the people around him." He hung up the phone. Tanxiu looked at Chen Zhizhong and sneered. Wenfeng actually came out of the Golden Coast in the middle of the night. You have a grudge with him, and I just broke the seal inside your body, yet he hurriedly came out. There's definitely a connection between the two. Maybe the one who harmed you is Wenfeng. "I have a question in my heart, master," said Chen Zhizhong. "What is it?" asked Tanxiu. Chen Zhizhong said, "If the person who harmed me was Wenfeng or someone sent by Wenfeng, why didn't they kill me directly? Why did they place a seal inside my body instead? Isn't that an unnecessary move?" Tanxiu's expression shifted. He nodded and said, "What you said makes sense. The other party didn't kill you and instead spent a lot of effort to place a seal inside your body. This shows that they have a plot, and it's you. But what do they want?" "It's nothing but money. That's all I can take out," said Chen Zhizhong. Tanxiu narrowed his eyes and nodded. "You're right. The market value of your company is very high, and your current wealth should be doubled compared to 2 years ago, right? Besides, you're running a medicinal herb business, so cultivators need precious medicinal herbs, so you've naturally become the prey in many people's eyes. As long as they can control you, they'll have a lot of medicinal herbs and money in the future. Chen Zhizhong asked, Master, didn't you say that the restriction placed on my body by the other party will kill me within 3 months? If they kill me, then it'll be meaningless for them to control me. Tanxiu sneered. Since they can place a seal inside your body, then they naturally have the ability to break it. When you're in despair and the other party tells you that they can break the seal inside your body, will you easily beg them to save you? Will you promise them that you'll be at their mercy in the future? Chen Zhizhong was silent for a moment before he slowly nodded and said, It's possible. After all, it's better to live than to die. Only by living will I have infinite possibilities. Tanxiu sneered. The other party's wishful thinking is very good, but they neglected my existence. They never thought that I can break the seal inside your body. If my guess is correct, the person who placed the seal inside your body should have suffered a backlash. This can be considered as us collecting some interest in advance. Shortly after, Tanxiu made a phone call and ordered Banzhou to go to his hometown in Qinghe County to look for the serene articulation grass in the mountains behind the Su family village. Tanxiu once found a lot of serene articulation grasses in the mountains behind the Su family village. He didn't collect them back then, but he didn't expect that they would be useful now. At 2 a.m., on a wide and flat road with dim street lights, 2 off-road vehicles sped like the wind. However, right at this moment, a cold light shot out from the distance, accurately hitting the forearm of the off-road vehicle at the very front. Bam! Screech, along with the sound of tires exploding and brakes screeching at the same time. The black SUV in front flipped 6 or 7 times and hit a lamppost on the roadside. The black off-road vehicle behind also came to an abrupt halt. Wen Feng, who was sitting in the black SUV in the back, opened the door and vigilantly observed the surroundings. He found that the surroundings were quiet, and there was nothing unusual. Then he shouted in a deep voice, Check the people in the front car and see if they're all right. We're fine, boss. 2 middle-aged men with bloodstains crawled out of the black SUV in front and quickly came to Wen Feng's front. Wen Feng asked with an ugly expression, What happened? Why did the tire burst? I don't know. The middle-aged man shook his head. I'll explain it to you. A loud voice came from the bushes on the side of the road. Jin Shi smiled as he led 4 experts from the Tang sect to quickly surround Wen Feng's group of 5. Wen Feng's pupils shrunk. He just felt that something was amiss, but he didn't expect that someone would ambush them on the road. He was surprised because the entire Liangong city was now under the Darkwind organization's surveillance. Their people were stationed on all the major traffic routes and would be closely monitored if any suspicious person appeared. But where did these 5 people come from? Who are you? Wen Feng vigilantly looked at Jin Shi's group of 5 and asked in a deep voice. You don't need to know where we came from, said Jin Shi with a faint smile. What you need to know is that you won't be able to escape today. Wen Feng instantly pulled out a pistol from his waist, quickly unlocked the safety, aimed at Jin Shi, and pulled the trigger. Puff! A cold light flashed, and before Wen Feng's finger could completely pull the trigger, his wrist was pierced by a sharp dagger. Following a muffled groan, Wen Feng staggered back 2 steps with disbelief in his eyes. He might be a gun user, but his martial arts prowess was his strongest point. But just now he didn't even have time to react and his wrist was pierced by a dagger. The situation made him feel a chill run down his spine. Who the hell are you? Wen Feng looked around and asked again in a deep voice after finding that there was no one else around. I don't want to repeat myself. Jin Shi sneered. You're our target today, Wen Feng, so please come with us. As for the others, kill them. Whoosh, 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 whoosh. The 4 people behind Jin Shi instantly dashed to Wen Feng's vicinity and unleashed lightning-fast killing moves to directly kill the 4 middle-aged men who had their expressions drastically changed. One of them even punched the back of Wen Feng's head after killing a middle-aged man and directly knocked him out. Tang'an, I'll hand him over to you. Jin Shi looked around and said. Tang Yan's figure appeared out of thin air a few meters away from Jin Shi. At this moment, she was carrying another man who looked like a dead dog. If Li Laozhan were here at this moment, he would definitely be able to recognize him. This man was Guo Tao, a famous wealthy businessman in Shaanxi province. BM. Tang Yan threw Guo Tao to the ground and indifferently said, "No need to hide. I'll follow you all the way to the hotel where Grand Master is staying. I'll deal with all the intel operatives of the Darkwind organization along the way." "Are you sure?" asked Jin Shi with a frown. Tang Yan snorted coldly and said, "I never say anything if I'm not sure." After saying that, her figure once again disappeared into thin air. Jin Shi looked at the place where Tang Yan disappeared and felt a chill in his heart. He was very envious of Tang Yan's ability to appear and disappear unpredictably, but he also knew that it was impossible for him to practice such an ability like Tang Yan. Chapter 1090. At the Blue Ocean Jindu Hotel. Tan Xiao, who was sitting cross-legged in the presidential suite, suddenly heard his mobile phone ringing again. When he picked it up, Jin Shi's voice came out of the phone. "We've caught the people you asked us to catch, Sect Master. Also, Tang Yan has caught one more." "Hand them over to Tang Yan. She knows where we are," said Tan Xiao. After a while, Tang Yan appeared in front of Tan Xiao and Chen Zhizhong while carrying the unconscious Wen Feng and Guo Tao. Immediately afterward, Jin Shi and the other 4 Tang sect members also quickly entered the room. "Close the curtains and turn on the lights," Tan Xiao calmly ordered. "Pa." The lights in the presidential suite were turned on. After Tan Xiao walked to the sofa and took a seat, he looked at Wen Feng and Guo Tao who were thrown on the floor and asked, "Which one is Wen Feng, Zhizhong?" Chen Zhizhong pointed to Wen Feng and said, "He's him. I also know the other one. He's Guo Tao. I didn't expect that you would send people to capture both of them, Master." Tan Xiao shot a satisfied look at Tang Yan and said, "Wake them up." Wake them up. The most effective way to wake them up was to beat them. The 2 Tang sect members violently beat the 2 unconscious men, and quickly woke them up. "Stop." Tan Xiao lit a cigarette and puffed out the smoke. He looked at the 2 men's vigilant eyes and smilingly said, "You 2 must be Wen Feng and Guo Tao, right? I've heard of your great names like a thunderclap reverberating in my ears. It's just that I didn't expect that our first meeting would be under such circumstances." Wen Feng and Guo Tao exchanged glances and immediately asked in a deep voice, "Who are you?" "Let's play a game. If you can guess who I am, I'll tell my men to break one of your legs," said Tang Xiao with a smile. "If you can't answer, I'll tell my men to break both of your legs. Of course, you can also choose not to answer, and the consequence of not answering is having your limbs broken. What do you think?" Wen Feng glared at Tan Xiao and said in a deep voice, "Brother, this is the first time we've met, so there shouldn't be any deep hatred between us." Tan Xiao shook his head and said, "I think our hatred is very deep. Haven't you noticed who is standing behind you?" Wen Feng and Guo Tao looked behind them at the same time. When they saw Chen Zhizhong, their expressions instantly turned ugly. At this moment, they finally understood who they had fallen into. Even Wen Feng knew who the person sitting in front of him was. Tan Xiao. He was the young miracle-working doctor in the field of traditional Chinese medicine in China, the big boss of the magnificent Tang Corporation. Tan Xiao said with a smile, "Wen Feng, I'll give you 10 seconds. If you don't answer my question in 10 seconds, then I'll break your limbs and you'll live like a dead dog from then on. Of course, I hope you're still alive." Wen Feng felt a chill in his heart and hurriedly said, "You are Tan Xiao." Tan Xiao gave him a thumbs up and praised, "It seems that the intel operatives of your Darkwind organization are really amazing. I haven't had much contact with Chen Zhizhong in the past 2 years, yet I didn't expect that you could dig out my relationship with him." Kacha Jin Shi strode forward and stomped on Wen Feng's left leg bone, then quickly returned to the place where he just stood. "Aya!" Wen Feng let out a blood-curdling scream, and his entire face contorted. He didn't expect that the other party would be so ruthless and directly cripple his left leg. "Well then, answer my next question." Tan Xiao smiled again and said, "If I'm satisfied with your answer, I'll have your arm broken. If not, I'll break your remaining leg and arms. Wen Feng's heart was like falling into an ice cave. He had seen cruel and merciless people, and he himself was one of them. But now he was like a fish on the chopping block. Under the shadow of death, he directly knelt in front of Tan Xiao and said, "Brother Tan Xiao, I know that I shouldn't have plotted against Chen Zhizhong and incurred enmity with him. Please spare me this time, and I promise to stay as far away from you as possible when I see you in the future. You asked me to answer your questions, and I'll answer them all. Please don't hurt me anymore." Tan Xiao raised his brows and looked at Chen Zhizhong, asking, "If he's willing to resolve the enmity between you two, will you do it?" Chen Zhizhong was silent for a moment and slowly said, "I'm not willing, but I'll listen to you, master. You said you won't haggle with them anymore, then I won't haggle with them in the future." Tan Xiao smiled and said, "If that's the case, then I'll make the decision for you and resolve the enmity between you and them. However, Wen Feng, you still need to answer some questions of mine." "Please ask. I'll tell you everything I know," said Wen Feng honestly. A wise man submits to circumstances. Tan Xiao raised his thumbs up and praised. "Well, it seems that you're very good. Then tell me, who cast a restriction spell on Chen Zhizhong's body?" Wen Feng's heart turned cold. He didn't expect that Tan Xiao would guess that this matter was related to him. He hesitated for a moment before he steeled his heart and said, "It's Elder Wei." "Who's this Elder Wei?" asked Tan Xiao. "I don't know his name." Wen Feng shook his head and said, "I only know that he's a high-ranking member of our organization, and I'm his subordinate. The reason why he attacked Chen Zhizhong was partly because of the enmity between me and Chen Zhizhong. On the other hand, he wanted to control Chen Zhizhong so that he could get the endless virtue pharmaceuticals, medicinal herbs, and wealth later." "Your organization is the Dark Wind, right?" asked Tan Xiao. "That's right." Wen Feng nodded and said, "I'm the one who's in charge of the Dark Wind's branch in Liangong City and Pengcheng in Wuxia. Guotao beside me is the one in charge of the Dark Wind branch in Shaanxi province." "Your Dark Wind organization gathered in Liangong City tonight for the transference transposition meeting, right?" asked Tan Xiao. "Are all the Dark Wind's regional leaders in Wuxia gathered here? You even know this?" asked Wen Feng in amazement. "I know more than that," sneered Tan Xiao. Wen Feng was silent for a moment and suddenly asked, "Are you an official of Wuxia? Do you really want to know?" asked Tan Xiao with a faint smile. Wen Feng stared blankly for a moment before his expression slightly changed. He hurriedly waved and said, "Please don't tell me, Boss Tang. I don't want to know. It was me who asked something I shouldn't have." "That's right." Tan Xiao chuckled and said, "You must know as little as possible if you want to live a long life. Tell me now, Wen Feng, where is this Elder Wei? Is he also in the Golden Coast Club?" "That's right." Wen Feng nodded and said, "He's indeed in the Golden Coast Club. Also, it's impossible for me to leave this place at this time, but the seal he cast in Chen Zhizhong's body was broken and he suffered a backlash, so he flew into a rage and ordered me to go back to get the information about you. One last question." Tan Xiao nodded with satisfaction and said, "If I'm satisfied with your answer, not only will I not kill you, but I'll also reward you instead." "Please ask," said Wen Feng hurriedly. "Who's the Dark Wind's general manager in Wuxia?" asked Tan Xiao. "Does he have a list of all the Dark Wind's members in China?" asked Tan Xiao. Wen Feng wore a bitter expression and shook his head. "I can't answer this question because I don't know who's the Dark Wind's general manager in China. But I know someone who can answer you." Tan Xiao looked at Guotao. Guotao sighed inwardly and said, "Wang Sheng is the general manager in China. His whereabouts are very elusive. Unless he takes the initiative to contact me, I can only contact him through the Dark Wind's intelligence network at the end of each year. Further, the intelligence network changes every year. I haven't gotten a way to contact him this year, so I don't know where he is." "What about the list?" asked Tan Xiao in a deep voice. "Wang Sheng is the Dark Wind's general manager in China, so he naturally has a list of all the Dark Wind's members in China. But I only have the list of all the intel operatives in Shaanxi province." Tan Xiao was very satisfied with their answers. Although he already knew that both of them were ruthless characters, they were also cowards who were afraid of death. They would never be loyal to the Dark Wind once faced with death, much less willing to sacrifice their lives for this organization. Such people, they would definitely play a good role if used well. Jin sure heal his leg, said Tan Xiao. Jin sure complied and quickly walked to Wenfeng's front. He grabbed his bare foot and reconnected his leg bone. Amidst Wenfeng's screams, he used his true essence to nourish the broken bone and then slowly said, "Don't exert any force on your left leg for 10 days. Intense joy filled Wenfeng's heart. He realized that Tan Xiao finally wouldn't kill him, else he wouldn't have asked his men to treat him. What else do you want to know, Boss Tang? I'll tell you everything I know. I'll tell you too, said Guatao in a muffled voice. I've asked all the questions I wanted to ask and I'm satisfied with your answers, said Tan Xiao with a smile. But if I let you go so easily, I'm afraid I'll be in trouble if you run to the Golden Coast and tell the Dark Wind about what happened here. Therefore you two need to promise me one more thing. Only then can you leave. We'll promise you anything. We promise. Both of them answered at the same time. Tan Xiao instantly grabbed Wenfeng and Guatao's shoulders and cast the soul-controlling art on them. Then he said with satisfaction, I've cast a restriction spell on you, and it's 100 times stronger than that old ghost Wei did. In other words, from this moment onwards, your lives are in my hands, and a single thought from me will be enough to kill both of you without a burial. Wenfeng and Guatao exchanged dismayed glances. They knew that Tan Xiao wouldn't let them go so easily. They could sense that Tan Xiao was right. Their lives were indeed in Tan Xiao's hands. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.